Stop listening to atheist YouTubers.
Hey, man! This makes sense!
Ravi Zacharias news first. That's interesting. I thought everybody would vote for political, but it's only 29%, so I guess we'll start with Ravi. I love when you go live when I'm at work because it's like getting paid to watch your show. Oh, Bill Shirk. You got to be productive in your work. I hope I'm not causing you to be unproductive. I doubt it. My guess is hearing my voice gives you life to the full, gives you lots of energy, and makes you the best employee your employer could have. Maybe you're the employer and not the employee. Who knows? That's your goal. That should be, well, for a lot of people, I think that'd be a goal. To not have a W-2. You don't want a W-2. Your goal in life should be to get a 1099. Yeah, if you know anything about taxes, you'll know what I mean. Okay, let's end that poll. Let's talk about Ravi. Ravi died. That's the news. He died, when was it? 3 years ago now? And I would say Ravi Zacharias was the most popular, most influential apologist of his era, starting in the 90s, 2000s, and so forth. I don't think I'm exaggerating. And it ended up, for those of you who live under a rock, for those of you who don't know, he started having shenanigans with women, asking certain women to rub certain private parts. They found evidence on phones, I think, on other things. Anyhow, basically, even Christians who loved Ravi are now admitting that he was a bit of a douchebag. But this came out yesterday, and apparently, okay, what page is this? Apparently, this was put together by guys like Sean McDowell, Paul Copen, William Lane Craig, Mike Licona, and his wife Debbie Licona. That's his wife, right, Debbie? They apparently spend a lot of time researching not Ravi, but Ravi's leadership. The top executive branch, the team, and to see how responsible they should be in all this. And this is where their conclusions. I'm not going to read all this, but I'll just read some of it. Numerous RZIM, how should I say that? RZIM? That's too long. Yeah, I'll say RZIM. Numerous RZIM staff members globally who pushed back or asked legitimate questions during the period of 2017 to 2021 were intimidated, mistreated, or retaliated against by members of RZIM's senior leadership team, SLT, senior leadership team. Those employees were doing what the SLT had responsibility to do and failed to do. So these are the findings of like Sean McDowell. He's saying, hey, look, there's people within Ravi's team who had suspicions, had questions, and they were intimidated just for asking those questions. And these are the questions the senior leadership team should have been asking. Many of these RZIM employees subsequently went public with their concerns. To this day, Sarah Davis Phillips, I think that's Ravi's daughter, Michael Ramsden, and no, it's not. Is it? Did she marry a Phillips? I don't know. Michael Ramsden and Abdu Murray, I know this guy, I did a video on him once, assert that these employees were wrong in doing so. Wrong in asking questions? Michael Ramsden went further, stating that these employees were part of the resistance, dun, 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 to bring the ministry down. In contrast, Dr. Diane Landberg, who has worked for over 50 years with trauma victims, stated that when abuse is occurring inside a system, you have to go outside the system. And they go on. And this is on Twitter. I think if you just search RZIM SLT public statement, you'll find it on the internets. And you can read it for yourself. But here's the big picture point that I want to make here. With the Ravi thing, my point's always been, look, Christians, you think Jesus is perfect, right? You do. You think Jesus is perfect. You thought you knew Ravi Zacharias, his character. No, you're not. I'm not saying that Ravi was perfect or God by any sense, but you thought you knew Ravi, and you were wrong. The evidence for the life and ministry of Ravi Zacharias far supersedes the evidence for the life and ministry of Jesus. You were wrong with Ravi. You can be wrong with Jesus. That should send shivers up your spine. It should. Really, it should. Because everything you hold dear falls and rests on Jesus if you're a Christian. And I've just cut the foundation right there with this. That's why I love this Ravi thing. It's tragic, but I kind of do love it because you can learn from it. But with what happened yesterday, with these findings now being submitted, this is about Ravi's leadership team. And I'm going to compare that to the early disciples, apostles, the New Testament authors. Can you imagine 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years after Jesus' death, Christians, having questions and doubts? Did Jesus really rise bodily? Can you imagine if maybe some of these early church fathers behaved like their leadership at Arzim? Quiet down. Don't you say that. But I was there. I didn't see Jesus. I was there that day. Shh, quiet. Don't you spread these rumors. But no, I was there. We don't have dirt like this, right, on Jesus because it's so many years ago. But are humans that different now as they were 2,000 years ago in terms of their willingness to lie or be so passionate for what they believe in that they kind of push some things under the rug? Can you imagine if the authors of the Gospels are like the RZIM leadership team? Where there's some false things and people will bring it up, but no. You hide it. That would explain why we don't have a lot of, or any direct evidence against Jesus like we do here with Ravi, right? But that doesn't mean it didn't happen. That's an argument from silence, Doug, and that makes me sad. That's the problem with such old texts. That's all I wanted to say about Ravi. I feel sorry for his family. Feel sorry for the victims. I actually feel a little sorry for Christians in a way because this does bother them. I'm sure of it. I'm sure if, let's see, out of all the 5 people I mentioned, Sean McDowell, William Lane Craig, Sean McDowell is probably the only guy who might actually hear this. But I want you to take what I said to heart. That this Ravi situation can be easily applied to your best buddy Jesus, who you think you know, but you don't. People thought they knew Ravi. They didn't. Okay, what was next on the poll? Oh yeah, the politics videos. Why did I do that? Why? Gosh darn it, Doug. Why did you do that? I don't know. To find something amazing, I guess. No, the first reason why I did, the reason why I did the video on the murder thing, because I sometimes get this feeling that Democrats, people on the left, they're kind of sometimes on their high horse thinking, we got the moral high ground here. I mean, just look at us. We never stormed the Capitol. Just look at us. We love poor people and want to take care of them. Just look at us, how great we are. So I like, the purpose of that video, I think, who knows what the real reasons are, but this is the ones that pop into my mind, is to bring down the left a notch or two by pointing out that if there's a murder in the United States, odds are it was committed by a Democrat. Truth hurts. Now, even at best, I can say, at best it's 50-50, Democrats commit murders at the same rate as Republicans. But do you really think so? Because just read the comment section of that video. It's like, well, Doug, that's because it's in urban areas highly populated and they tend to vote Democrat. People in high urban areas tend to vote Democrat, and that's where these murders are. Right? So if you see a murder, odds are it's committed by someone who has grown up in a neighborhood that leans Democrat. That's very reasonable. So before you get on your high horse, saying we're in the party of morality or whatever, just remember the biggest crime, murder in the United States, is probably, I'm not making a 100% claim here, but if you were to roll the dice, make bets, odds are, even if it's just 51%, odds are you're more likely to be a murder is going to be committed by a Democrat than a Republican. There. Now just chew on that for a little bit. What's another reason why I did that video? Another reason why I did it is, or both of them, is to see the response I would get, to separate the wheat from the chaff. And I want to commend, I should have got names, but I want to commend, I can think like 3 or 4 of you. I don't know if you're listening right now, but you know who you are. Who will ask questions like, well, what's the point of this video? And you ask it in a nice way. Or you'll say, hey, I think I understand the point and I agree with it, but I maybe to not that degree. Very nice responses. But then you got the responses of people like, you're hurting my team. Don't hurt my team. Everything, Doug, you say about politics is garbage because you're hurting my team. Now, for the Christians listening, I got to explain something to you. When you hear atheists like that talk like that, a lot of them are ex-Christians, or maybe not, but it doesn't matter. They find their hope, meaning, and purpose in politics. So you got to understand where they're coming from. Their life is dull and boring without politics, for a lot of them. This is what gives them passion. They feel good inside when they think they're saving the world, whether it's the environment or helping the poor, whatever. It's like, it feels good. And I'm not blaming them. I mean, it's good to feel good, right? But they can be I'm still talking to the Christians, but they can be just as passionate as you guys are about Jesus. They can be about like, the world's coming apart. We got to change this, and this, and the Democrats is the party with hope, and if you vote Republican, it's like the world's going to come to an end. We're going to lose our democracy. Blah blah blah. I wish I could live long enough to make bets to make money on all this stuff, but odds are I won't live long enough. But if you look at the history of our nation, and I say our because I've lived here for many years. If you look at the history of the United States, what happened on January 6th? Okay, you ready, Democrats? Get ready. Get your seatbelt on. What happened January 6th is nothing compared. Listen to my words, okay? Nothing compared to what this nation has been through in the past. In terms of threat to its democracy, to its nationhood, sovereignty, what happened on January 6th? Let me rub that in hard, sort of talking about Ravi Zacharias. Let me rub that in hard. January 6th was nothing compared to what this nation's been through. You know, there's a movie called Amsterdam. Has anybody here seen it? It's a really quirky movie. I saw it with my kids. My daughter wanted to see it. I saw it actually in Winnipeg, Manitoba. And it stars Christian Bale, Margot Robbie, Rami Malek. I mean, it has a lot of huge stars in it. Taylor Swift is in it. And Robert De Niro. And in that movie, Robert De Niro plays the general, Gil Dillenbeck, which is apparently based in real life. And if you want to talk about points in history where the United States has come close to losing its democracy, you got to go maybe between World War I and World War II, or just after World War I, where generals are now talking to Nazi party members and other dictator types and trying to get influence on them. This is my opinion, but if you can see it, odds are it's not a real threat when it comes to democracy. If you can see it happening, odds are that's not the real threat. It's what you don't see is probably the real threat. What we saw on January 6th, we could see. It was clear. Probably not a real threat. What else did I want to say about the politics part? Yeah, so I really appreciate the people who were nice and kind and thoughtful, asked good questions. But it's hard, right? Especially in text form. It's really hard to have these types of conversations when you can't see people's faces. But for the people who just like, you can't imagine how someone can, let's say you can agree with me on religion, and you can't imagine how are you not a Democrat? If that's your opinion and attitude, by the way, I'm not a Democrat or Republican. I'm not a cheerleader for either. True story. I can't even vote. I'm not a US citizen. But just the fact that you can't understand why a guy like me would even say stuff that might make the Democrats look bad-ish. If that is where you're coming from, you can't understand why someone could have different views. I mean, you're like a child. You're like these Christians who just think, oh, you just want to live in your sin and that's why you're an atheist. You're like them. Oh, you just blah, 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 so you're a Republican. People have legitimate differences in how they see the world and what they value. You gotta learn that. Why? Because that's what helps people communicate with each other. Like for Christians, for example, they value this sense of living forever. The fear of death is high. They want to live forever. They want to see grandpa again. That is an understandable reason why they might want to believe that Christianity is true, right? And defend it to the hilt. Why is my chair squeaking? Can you guys hear that? What else did I want to say about that? Oh, yeah. And then another reason why I made those videos is to have interesting conversations. Like, why is it that every single city, well, at least in the top 10, top 20, I think even the top 30 of cities, the highest murder per capita, remember per capita counts for population, all lean Democrat, all. Why is that? Well, people gave great answers. Well, it's because people want to get their lives better, and so they want to change their lives, and so they vote Democrat because of all these murders that they see, or maybe it's poverty or whatever. And then there goes another discussion on, well, why aren't things changing? I bet you if you go back decades, you'll find the same results. I don't know about this, but try it and let me know what you find out. I bet you're going to find the same results. Why? And then some people say, well, but Doug, all these blue cities that commit all these murders are in red states. So it's the red states causing these blue cities to exist. Yeah, it becomes a little funny. Yeah. So if you're feeling on your high horse as a Democrat, just know that most murders in the United States are committed by Democrats. I'll go further. Most welfare recipients, probably Democrats. So if you're looking at the biggest crime ever, murder, and let's say a financial burden like welfare, both those things, you could view them as a drag to the United States economy and a drag to the United States morality. One could easily say that's in the Democrat camp. But of course, it's the Republicans that force the Democrats to do these things. I'm curious. Does anybody disagree with me, or question that's not true? It could be false. I'm open to that idea. But it's at worst or at best, however you want to look at it, it's 50-50. It's down the middle. But on the positive side, let me say something positive about Democrats. You're more likely to be a financial burden to the economy as a Democrat. But on the flip side, a lot of billionaires, hundreds of millions heirs in the United States are Democrats, paying lots of taxes, or at least some taxes. At best, you're leaping to conclusions. Well, it's very reasonable, right? If you think that high urban areas have high poverty and that leads to crime, and if I cited my sources the other day, then it's a no-brainer, right? And I think even Democrats admit this. If you were forced to make a bet, and there's no downside for you, but if you're right, you make like millions of dollars. You're really going to bet, given the city stats, that the odds are a person who's murdered is not murdered by a Democrat? Or, when I say Democrat, I mean like from a Democrat district or city or family. Anyhow, are we sick of politics already? Doug, you're making people cry, says Joe Goldblum. Well, I think I'm being incredibly reasonable. I wanted to show this clip of Mike Licona. I made a short about it yesterday, but I couldn't believe my ears. But first of all, I want to say I like Mike Licona, and he's a very honest historian / apologist. You have to be honest to say stuff like this that he's saying here. Here he's on Sean McDowell's channel talking to Dr. Dale Allison, who is also a PhD in New Testament history. And they're talking about worldviews.
And, bracketing my worldview and trying to be as objective with this as possible.
Is it quiet?
I still do that. I mean, today I'd say sometimes people say, well, what do you think is the toughest objection to the resurrection? I don't think most of what's offered out there is that tough. But if when I look at it, I think, well, if I were a Muslim, and let's just say that the evidence we had for Islam being correct was on par for what we have for the resurrection, and that we did not have that evidence for the resurrection. So if you just kind of flip-flopped and they had the evidence for the truth of Islam that we have for Christianity, but we didn't have what we have, would that be enough to persuade me as a Christian to become a Muslim? And I honestly don't know that that's the case, because I don't like Islam. It's not attractive in the least to me.
Yeah, look at Dale Ellison's expression here. But, Dale Ellison, I don't like Islam either, but I think Dale thought that was a little excessive.
So would that the amount of evidence be enough to pull me over? I don't know that it would be.
See, this is the thing. Mike Licona, what he's doing here is the flying man to himself. He's doing a version of the flying man to himself, and realizing and being honest that you apply the same evidence for the resurrection to a different belief system, a different religion, he's not going to believe it. So that tells you, and this is the purpose of the flying man, one of the purposes, that tells you it's not about the evidence. It's about something else. What is it? What is this something else? Well, for different people, it's going to be different things. I think for Mike, it's, the spiritual world exists, God exists, because I've seen flying garbage can lids. I've seen spooky stuff. I was on a field laying on the grass, and I heard sounds, and I looked up and nobody was there. So given my worldview is that spirits and spookiness and God must exist, then Christianity makes the most sense. And plus, don't you know, he died for me. And that makes me feel really good. And what is more attractive than someone who loves you so much that they were willing to die for you? how romantic, how Disney. Does Disney have anything like that? Yeah, Disney has lots of movies like that. I think even Maleficent, right? Didn't she die? And then, or get her wings cut off? Sort of like Jesus, pierce the hands. So, Mike, thank you for admitting that. Thank you for showing me to be right that so many times it's not about the evidence. It's about your desires and your worldview, I guess. See, for me, I would say that if my markers are met, I would believe Christianity is true. But then there's another level here, and that is, would you follow it? Would you worship? And that depends for me on a lot of factors, like exactly what is the nature of this God? Is he worthy of my worship? Just because he created me and sustains my life, I can grant all that. That still doesn't mean he's worthy of worship. I know for Christians that's really hard to understand. But you can be a creator of something, a sustainer of something, and still a schmuck that's not worthy to be worshipped. Anyhow, I thought that was interesting. Another clip I want to play is from Sean. Sean, you're putting out some good content. At least I'm finding it interesting. People look at this old guy and they think, well, why should I listen to this old guy? But this old guy named Craig Olson, PhD, I'm old too, sort of pulled inspired philosophy and said that the patriarchs didn't live to 900 years old. They didn't live that old. And, well, if you're an atheist or a secular person, of course, you know that that's all silliness, that the people don't live that long. We have no evidence of that. And he basically admits this. He admits there's no evidence of it. And I tell you, some of the comments I've read here, well, let's see if I can find any. It brings fear to a certain version of Christianity. Because if you just can't take what the Bible says at face value on these ages, then what else has been changed? And the reason why this guy thinks it's been changed is, people say that it's 900 years old, that people lived and not, is because they're using the cultures around them, a style, an idiom, whatever, to have a certain symbolism of things. But at the end here, when Sean McDowell asks him, but doesn't that make the Bible wrong? Because it's claiming that a person is 900 years old, claiming something that's not true. I think that's what he asks here. Let's see.
Now you can place Abraham where the cities are thriving, where the cultural factors fit in, everything synchronizes, right? And where it fits where he would live and during that time frame. And so now you can say, okay, we have real people living in real cities with real events that happened. The big one I mentioned earlier was, I think that's the point of that they're doing that. Mm-hmm.
Tell me why you don't think this contradicts the Chicago statement of inerrancy to take the position that you take. Why is this within the fold of inerrancy?
Right, because if you take the other view, it does contradict the Chicago statement of inerrancy, because you're saying that the...
Yeah, did you get what he's saying here? I found this hilarious when I heard it. Why do you take this view that it has to be a certain technique, a literary style, taken from other cultures? Why do you take that view and say, oh, you can still have inerrancy? Because you're basically saying because you have to, because if you don't, then the Bible's wrong. And the Bible can't be wrong. So we're forced to have this interpretation. And I think you'll see this with many things in science too, that as the world gains knowledge about how the world works, and if it puts tension on anything in the Bible, you just say, oh, we misinterpreted it. And this guy, I made a video on him saying exactly that, or something similar to that you need science in order to interpret the Bible correctly. I thought that was fascinating. Now, I wonder if some Christians would say the reverse. You need the Bible to interpret science correctly. But I think I know where they're going if they do say that, because you need a standard and blah, blah, blah. But that gets back to the Ricky Gervais statement that he made with Stephen Colbert, that you could destroy all of the records of history and we will still get back to science. Humans will still experiment, hypothesize, and learn things. But you can't repeat history, right? Unless Jesus would have to come down again, reveal himself again, yada, yada. Okay, I've been ignoring the live stream. If you have questions or comments, tag me. I think that's all I wanted to do. That's 30 minutes. I'll take it. I'll open up the room. And then as soon as I open up the room, my microphone starts to do crazy things. So the way you hop in here, and by the way, I'm not going to wait long. If you got something to say to me, come in soon. I'm not going to make this just sit and wait for you. I'll just end the stream. How about a call-in political SC Sunday? Sunday? I don't know about Sundays. Doug.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing well, thanks. What's up?
Comments on your political views?
Okay.
I agree with you. Oh, I got to take off.
Gotta go? I love it. You come on and say I agree with you, and then you leave.
I kind of flip off something there.
Oh.
I agree with you because I'm neither right nor left, although I do think America's moved much righter. But if it's on a continuum with Democrats being on the left and Republicans being on the right and everybody in the middle, the left is very oversensitive. They're not hard-hearted like us.
You're hard-hearted like me?
Yes, to a degree.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh, probably much more to a degree. But the right wing is very insensitive. And I think your comment that murderers are composed of Democrats is wrong. I worked in a prison, or I interned in a prison. They're all freaking right of Trump. In most red states have more murders than the blue states. So I don't mind your position.
So you think that, okay, but your main, the reason why you say I'm wrong is because you went to a jail and your personal experience was that?
Well, I've worked with murderers, and statistically, if you look, most all prisoners are Christian, and most all prisoners are very right wing. They're hard asses. They're insensitive bastards. Over on the other side, you get the oversensitive,
okay,
fearful people.
Okay, you might be right, but did you know that 50% of all the murders in the United States are done by what demographic?
What demographic?
Yeah.
In like 18 to 25-year-olds, or what type of demographic?
Skin color.
Are you talking? Oh, minority.
Yeah. And we know also that minorities of that skin color vote 90% Democrat.
Yes, minorities vote Democrat.
So half of all murders are committed by African Americans, and 90% of African Americans.
That's where your inference is wrong.
I'm not making any inferences.
The murderers of the Democrats who live in Democratic areas, the murderers themselves are not the oversensitive type of people. Like most.
Oh, you're saying they're Republicans from Democratic cities?
Well, areas, yeah. You look into the prisons.
So if you commit murder, you're a Republican, and if you don't, you're a Democrat.
No, you're a hard ass.
I know,
And
but
most
Doug, listen to yourself. You're saying hard asses tend to murder. Hard ass is more correlated with Republican than Democrat. I'm still manning you.
Okay.
And so therefore, murderers are more likely to be Republican, right? Yeah, if I still man you? Okay.
Yes. That's better than, hey, half the people are Democrat,
No.
half the people are Republican. That's your inference.
So if we were to take every single murder in the year 2021, and then just find where these people are from, because that's the claim I made, that they're where they're from.
Red states.
Okay, good. Where in the red state? In the big cities, right?
Cities. Yes.
Yeah. And are these big cities primarily voting blue or red?
They're voting blue.
Right. And so that's my claim.
Well, the point is, what is the relationship? No. Well, I agree with you with that. Yes.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Not your inference. Again, I take the population of murderers. You find many of them in prisons. Those people do not vote at all. But if they voted, they would not vote Democrat.
Yeah, I'm not talking about them specifically. I'm talking about that where these murders are conducted and where the murderers are from and what family and cities and cultures and so forth.
Okay.
Yeah. And my claim was that they come from primarily Democratic places.
Well, I was an educational psychologist.
Do you disagree with that, what I just said?
Say it one more time.
Do you disagree with what I just said?
I know. I said say that one more time.
So my claim is that most, meaning over 50% of murderers come from cities, high urban areas that vote primarily Democrat. Do you agree or disagree?
First of all, if you take a look at those red states where most murderers are at, when you get them with the big cities like New Orleans, sure, Detroit, high crime rate, but you also get them in Wyoming, in those
Doug,
states.
Do you agree or disagree with what I said?
The demographics do not correlate with your inference.
What's my inference?
Right? Your inference is that since most people in America who murder come from cities, and most cities are Democratic, therefore most murderers are Democratic.
No, I said most murderers come from Democratic areas.
Well, okay, splitting the hair there. So do you believe that most murderers are Democratic?
Yes.
That's the inference.
Yes, that is an inference, but what I said originally was not. So do you think it's a good inference to say that a person is a Republican if they come from a Republican area? Is that a good inference, Doug?
I don't think so.
Oh, come on.
I not because of that.
You're just saying that to get out of this.
I don't think so.
Let me ask it a different way, Doug. Doug, let me ask it a different way.
If you're going to get me defensive, you got to let me defend myself here.
No. Let me ask the same.
Oh, no.
Let me ask it a different way, and I'm just going to see if you give the same answer.
Okay, sure.
I pluck someone out at random from Liberal, Kansas.
Oh, Liberal, Kansas?
Yes. Do you know where that is?
No.
Okay.
Kansas, I know.
How about Omaha, Nebraska?
A city. Okay. Omaha, Nebraska.
At random, I pick someone out from the Omaha, Nebraska area. I ask you a question. You have to bet. Is this person a Republican or Democrat? What would you say?
A Republican.
Okay. I pull out a murderer from Detroit, and I ask you, what's more likely? This murderer leans Republican or Democrat? What would you say?
I'd say Republican.
Oh, good night, everyone. Good night, everyone. Everybody can hear what you're doing, Doug.
Well, again, I think the inference that you're using, and of course you would not agree that Well, you did say most murderers are Democratic, and that's what I disagree with. Look, I don't care
Are
about
from Democratic areas. That's what I said. That's
well, right,
yeah.
right. But you also
But my
said
opinion
you
is,
could look
yeah,
at that.
yeah.
Well, that's your opinion, and that's where the inference jumps from one to the other.
Let's take
And
let's
that's
take
what I
something
don't
like
agree.
welfare. Do you think? I think it's close to 50-50, but if we were to nudge one over the other, do you think most welfare recipients are Democratic or Republican?
Democratic.
Okay, so yeah, we're agreed with that one.
Yeah,
It's just the murder one we're stuck on.
Again, we're agreed. I disagree with the right wing and the left wing. 10-15% of the left wing are crazy. They're loony, but they don't get the voice that the right wing is getting. 25 to 30% of them are loony. And I think that the hostility that goes along with the Republicans, the anger, I meet a lot of guys who are Republican, and they are hostile towards Democrats in a very, almost violent way, not verbally violent, not actually violent. And that correlates with murder. Again, my job mainly consisted of working really hardcore gang kids. And these guys were not your, sensitive, oversensitive, liberal people. They are not liberally minded.
Not liberally minded.
No.
Okay. Well, thanks for coming on, Doug.
Okay.
I love the defensiveness. I love that both of our names are Doug, so I have no idea what people are saying. If they're saying about me or the other Doug. My name's Doug. This is my other brother, Doug. How do you know the population of a murderer is representative of the general population? What kind of stupid question is that? Why are you assuming that is unbiased? What kind of stupid question is? Can someone explain the dude's question? I'm not making any claims of a murderer's representative of the general population. What are the factors that cause people to murder? What percentage of those factors relate to political belief? That's a good question. Room's open. Hey.
What's up, Doug?
Not too much.
Man, look, I just got to be honest with you, man. I think you jumped the shark, man. I think you went way Joe Rogan on us.
Is Joe Rogan bad?
Yeah, bad.
Okay.
I think you're just in this place where now you like to troll the left. You like to poke at us. You want to hurt our feelings, and cool. You've done so, Doug. You've actually hurt my feelings, and I'm just identifying myself as probably one of, a substantial number of people who just have problems with what you say, but like, I don't know. I think enough of you to say, like, you inspire me a lot in this counter apologetics thing. You really helped a lot of us, see through Christianity. But now it's like watching you is like difficult. Like I can't even watch, like, because I'm just watching somebody who enjoys saying things that hurt people like me at a time we can't afford.
May I ask what I said that hurt you?
Doug, it's everything. Let's tell trans people they're not trans. Let's do a thought experiment. What if you had
I didn't talk about trans today, but
not today. Let's go through a thought. Let's have a thought experiment of, if you had to pass a government test to have reproduction. Oh, let's talk
Didn't talk
about
about that
how
today.
most Democrats. Yeah, but this is the trend, Doug.
Is there anything I
You-
said
you're not-
today
you're not
that you?
Yeah, this whole thing. You want just come out and say it. Most murders are committed in Democratic cities by who? Black people, right? Because that's where you're going before.
I said that.
What
Yeah,
is the
50,
point about
not most.
what's
It's
the point of
50%.
talking about that right now?
It's 50%.
Why? Why do you want to talk about that in the middle of a midterm when with all the issues that are going on in this country? Why do you pick now to
Midterms are over.
Look, I just don't I don't get you, Doug. And all I wanted to say is you hurt me. I'm not here to debate you. I'm not here to you cool. It's your show. I'm sure you have your facts straight. I'm sure you feel
Are you saying that
perfectly
some truth
justified in
shouldn't
your
be spoken?
positions. No, that's not what I'm saying at all. I'm
Okay.
saying some truths are shallow. I think if you're going to really bring up these things and be such a critical thinker, then do some critical thinking. I think what you're doing is you're picking easy stances that are contrarian. Oh, let's poke and prod at the left, but you're overlooking the fact that poking and prodding at people like that right now is what is being weaponized in our society. And it's just dangerous, Doug, and I'm disappointed in you. I'm not here to debate you. I'm here to tell you to your face that I'm disappointed in you. You don't have to accept it or believe it or buy it or care, but I wanted to tell you to your face.
Okay. Your last word? Room's open. Oh, that was a little cruel. The Titanic music. But this is what I mean. You got to be a little more dead inside if you want to have these conversations. Room's open. Like, again, I'm not going to wait too long. If you got something to say, come in quick. Do you think people are honestly engaging with what you said? You have triggered them in a literal sense. They are basically bots responding to stimuli. What is the point of engaging? No, Berg, there was, I said this when I first came on. There was several in my comment section. I should actually, what's their names? Well, my friend Ray, for example, who I play poker with, very, oh, now we got trolls coming in. But there was several. I'll let Rob in because he's you're the first theist who's come on, I think. And it's Theist Thursday.
I'm disappointed in you, Doug. I'm disappointed.
Don't force me to play the Titanic song.
Cue the music. Go on, do
it. Did you? I thought of you when I played the not today, but earlier when I played the Licona clip. Did you hear that? Where he said, "If you,
yeah, I listened to that debate, but I didn't really track much."
But did you hear the part he said basically if you took the evidence for Christianity and applied it to Islam, and let's say the evidence for Islam applied it to Christianity, he said he still wouldn't become a Muslim because he doesn't like Islam. Did you hear that part?
No, I didn't.
Yeah,
no.
It's very interesting. He basically admitted it's not about the evidence.
Wait, Mike said that?
Yeah, Mike Licona.
Okay. Yeah. Now, Mike's definitely a lot more conservative or dogmatic than Dale. I like Dale.
Yeah, I do too. I think he's great.
Yeah.
But he.
How you been?
But he admits.
What's going on with the American politics stuff?
Oh, not much. I just thought I would ruffle some feathers yesterday, and I did a couple of videos, just short ones, just to get some Democrats off their high moral horses. That's all.
Because I'm totally oblivious to what's going on.
Oh yeah, there's midterm elections, so people in the Senate and the House and governors get voted in or out. It looks like the House is going to switch to Republican. The Senate's still, I think, up in the air. It's pretty much down the middle. Governorship, I think it leaned a little bit more Republican, but not much. But a lot of the races are still being counted. That's it. I think you're probably caught up with the politics.
Okay.
That's all you need to know. Things won't change much.
Sounds like Banana's still over there.
Yeah. People think that once their party gets in, then yes, everything will change. And I just like to remind them it probably won't. How are things with you?
Okay. Australia is pretty much recovering from COVID. It's not like a pandemic anymore for us anymore. Otherwise, no, I've just been doing my own thing, catching up on some well-needed exercise and surfing and outdoor activities, and yeah, that's pretty much it. Haven't really done much on YouTube.
Well, speaking of COVID, do you mind if I use you as a way to ruffle more feathers?
Do it.
Okay.
And cue the Titanic.
I regret getting the vaccine because I think.
Oh, okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, before the vaccine came out, I was in support of it. Blah blah blah. But this is like one of these personal experience things where it's really powerful. I'll start with 3 members of my family, personal family. Now, you can't prove this, and I'll admit this, but there's pretty strong correlation to the timing and all this. My nephew had major heart problems after his second, or is it third dose. So much so that he had a heart monitor on 24/7. So anyhow, that's that. My sister almost went crazy with fear. My other sister, to this day has constant allergic breakouts of hives and stuff, to the point where it blisters and bleeds, and it's unbelievable, painful and irritation and just terrible. And then for me personally, a month or 2 after I got my second dose, this happened last year, I had, number one, a horrible experience with it, hallucinated, like not just felt bad, I hallucinated like I was on Percocet. And I've been on Percocet before, and I know what hallucinations are like. I hallucinated on it, and then over the next, and even to this day, have had extreme problems with my extremities, like tingling sensations. And then a couple months after that, in fact, it was right after a live stream, I thought I was going to have a stroke.
Oh,
yes.
Okay.
And
Wow.
and to this day, I'm still not quite right. Like,
What vaccine did you get?
I'm constantly Pfizer. I'm constantly headachy. I'm constantly unbalanced in my, like when I walk. It's like I have to focus to walk. I've been to 3 or 4 different specialists. Nobody can figure out what's wrong. I look healthy on paper, and nobody knows what's going on. Now, can I prove this has anything to do with the vaccine? No. But my suspicions it is. If I could, knowing that in hindsight, if I could rewind the clock, I would never have gotten it. And I think people should be able to say what I just said without fear of whatever, and state what they think is a negative experience with it.
Because I consulted with, I have a few of my friends who are in the biological department and to do with viruses and vaccines, and that's not my field, and I needed clarification. This is back early 2020. I even consulted online YouTubers like Joel Duff, who works for Biologos. He's a professor. He teaches at the biological level, biochem and all that. He's a Christian. He was one of those Christians that advocated like pro-vaccine, like we need to get it. I've had 3 doses, and I got COVID, which I suppose you could say is like my 4th dose.
Yeah, it was
earlier in May. Yeah.
So
I
what's your
got my
opinion
3rd
now?
dose,
Like,
and
like given that what we know now, like that once you get COVID, it's probably better than the vaccine as far as immunity. Given what you know now, would you still have gotten the vaccines?
well, I read a paper a month ago that was published a month ago saying that I think 20 million lives were saved theoretically through like heuristics and mathematical modeling, like 20 million lives were saved because of the vaccine.
No, but I'm talking about you. Would you have gotten the vaccine? Like, do you think you actually saved any lives?
I circumstantially looking at those stats and plus my own experience, I reckon I would have gone for it.
Yeah. I think it's
because when I got COVID, I was kind of shocked as to I've never had a virus like that before, and I knew.
But given what we know that like getting the vaccine doesn't stop you from getting COVID, right? And it doesn't stop you from transmitting COVID, right?
But it was never promised to be like 100% shield against COVID.
I know, but what I just said was true, right?
Wait, say that again? Like what?
Getting the vaccine doesn't prevent you from getting COVID and doesn't stop you from spreading COVID, correct?
No.
So how?
Yes, you're correct. You're correct.
So how does you getting a vaccine save lives? Because you can still get COVID.
It saves your life. Yeah, it saves your life.
Right.
It's
if you
not
take
talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. And I agree with that. Yeah.
And I think as far as spreading goes, as far as I've read, I could be wrong, but as far as I've read, the spreading is not equivalent. It's not a one-to-one correlation to someone who's not vaccinated and has it, and how that person spreads it. Because the person who's been vaccinated doesn't, COVID doesn't last as long in the system,
but the purpose of getting the vaccine is so you don't die, right?
Basically, yeah.
And
with the whole long what's it called, like long COVID, and so all those. And also now they're saying there's neurological effects you can get because of COVID,
and maybe also the vaccine.
Really?
And but the point is, like, if I was to do it all over again, I would have just highly recommended people of high risk to get vaccinated and above a certain age. Like, I think I'm right on the line, but I think.
But maybe my question to you, Doug, is, which by the way, this is not. This is putting all the cards on the table. It sounds then, if you followed your thought process fully through into like a conspiracy sort of mode, would you then one day say that there is something legit to the whole plan, what they call the plandemic? Which obviously it's part of the far right conspiracy stuff. Like, are you going in that direction, or are you sort of on the fence?
I have no idea what you're talking about. I'm just saying that if the vaccine's purpose is to reduce death, you should use it primarily for the people at most risk of death. If there's negative, it's a cost benefit analysis, right? The vaccine does have costs. Everybody agrees with this. It has costs. Now it also has benefits. Everybody agrees with that too. But the question is, for different people in different age categories and demographics, that cost benefit analysis changes. If you're really old and you have high risk factors, the benefit of the vaccine is huge compared to the risk.
Exactly, yeah.
But if you're a 10-year-old boy or a 12-year-old boy, like my nephew, no. In fact, I would dare say it's stupid to get the vaccine.
But what I'm saying is, what you're saying there, and I see what you're saying, but what you're saying is vital ammunition for those agenda-driven right-wing conspiracy folk, that say everything's run by the Illuminati and the vaccine is a.
I don't care about them. I mean,
population control.
I'm just talking about this cost-benefit analysis.
Yeah, but surely surely. I guess the question you're raising is, why is it was considered to be safe per se, and it passed regulations, and yet it's giving you all these symptoms. But yet I've never had any symptoms.
Yeah.
That's I'm sorry to hear that. There are people.
And my guess is most people don't have symptoms or that negative of symptoms, but some do. And so then it comes down to this type of cost-benefit analysis. And I think I was at an age where it's close, But given the fact that
Did you get COVID?
yeah, I never been tested, but I truly believe that I had COVID before the vaccines came out. And knowing what I know now, yeah, I think to get the vaccine is, given the risks, I didn't need it. I had COVID. I was already immune. Like you admitted yourself, you getting COVID before the vaccines came out, that was your first shot. That was your first.
No, I got COVID after I had 3 vaccines.
Oh, you
then
got
I
COVID after the first one or second one?
No, after the third one.
Oh, the third one. Okay.
Yeah, which was quite incredible. I mean, I went according to the, their regulations of so many months later I get the second dose, then the third dose, and then it's Nathan.
I can hear you twice.
Don't say that. Okay, how am I going to do this? I know. How are you doing, Nathan?
Yeah, I'm doing all right. I wanted to say a few things. I don't know if there's a natural lull in the conversation at this point, though, for me to
Yeah,
say
there's
them.
a natural lull.
One of them would be advice for people who are like Democrats who are upset at your political takes. I would say if they're going to kind of like, I understand why they're upset, right, given that they disagree. But I think that if they're going to come in and disagree with you, sort of showing that emotionally is only almost going to reaffirm yourself and what people who are like share the beliefs as you think about what's going on.
That's a good strategy. You're basically saying don't give Doug fuel to the fire. Like you're.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's the fact, like, that everyone who's a Republican, right, is watching Jay say come in, and I like slightly agreed with some of the things he had to say, right. But everyone who's a Republican is watching that, and they're just going to go, well, look, the facts don't care about your feelings, and that's what Doug's doing, and it's just going to reaffirm them that being a soft lefty is all about feelings and don't care about the statistics and irresponsible with the economy and all of these kind of stereotypes I think that people have. So that was one thing, and then the other thing was I do think I think this. You've got to be kind of careful with the thing that Jay said about some truths are sort of maybe saying what I forget exactly how it was that he said it.
I asked him, should some truths not be spoken?
Yeah, but he said something back like some truths say more truth than or something.
Yeah, well, I don't know how he used a certain word. I forget what the word was.
But I think that what this is you can sort of say something that's true, right, and relatively uncontroversial, but it can imply something, and you might say it to kind of imply that more controversial claim. So this is like when Jordan Peterson said, remember in the past when pride used to be a sin, right? And obviously the implication of that is, well, we should make it like that again or something. Whereas when someone comes and says, well, that's a kind of bigoted view, he can retreat back. Well, that's just a fact. Like people in the past did used to think pride was a sin, and it's like this modern Bailey thing where you can like imply the more controversial thing. And then if someone comes and criticizes it, you can say, well, look, I'm just stating facts here. Like, do you disagree? People put it. And I think we've got to be careful about that.
But I'm like very transparent, or at least today I was, on why I did what I did. My goal was to knock Democrats down a few notches in their moral high horse.
Yeah, I mean, U.S. politics is complicated, right? And I don't know what the right thing is. Whether the right thing to do is to.
The fact is, most murders occur in Democratic areas.
Yeah, and I think that the disagreement with other Doug, right? He was obviously saying that most people, the voting intention of most criminals is Republican, or the disposition or something like that, right? And you were saying, but the areas that they're in, and then you've got all of these problems for the inferences about like, well, what's the causal effect between the policies? Because you even have lag, right? This happens all the time where a president comes in, or a new like I don't know what the local councils and things are called, but then they get blamed for the policies of the previous. The other team, as it were, sort of like implementing their policies, and then there's a lag for the economic effects, and then everyone goes, "Oh, look, the current ones are really bad, but actually that's the previous people's policies." So it's complicated telling an actual causal story, right, about what's going on there, and I think people who are interested in really figuring that out are going to have to like do a lot of work to get to the bottom of it. I don't think we're going to be able to just like simply go, oh well, look, like these blue states worse crimes, so it's all caused by being a blue voter or something. I think it's difficult.
Yeah, and I wasn't making any judgment calls of what's causing it. But I read a lot of the comments in my videos section, and I do find it kind of funny that when it comes to something like murder, that someone blames a Republican legislator for that personal of an act. Because there's many poor people, many people raised in poverty, many people who, whatever, don't murder. And so, I mean, you gotta, at some point, this is the difference between personal responsibility and corporate responsibility, right? It's, at some point you have to say, that person's bad for what they did.
Well, that it's the tough love versus the kind of like victim.
Yeah.
And those are the two ways. I think those are like dispositional differences or maybe value differences, like where it's not even clear if there's a fact of the matter about what the right values are to have, but that's what the political disagreement is about between the right and the left. Like, should we view these people as victims of the circumstances they're born into, or should we hold them responsible and punish them? And yeah, I don't know how you resolve these things exactly. But I do think what Jay said about, given the kind of political climate in America, it's not clear to me what the best way is to sort of try and simmer down, like those tensions between the polarized dividing lines rather than like stoking the flames. And I don't know if what you're doing is a good way of doing that because it's going to humanize Republicans to Democrats, or I don't know if make it worse because it makes it like, it's like pushing the issues.
Well, no, I think overall it's a good thing because it does show that like people like Jay, and people in my comment section, that when they lash out and just say, well, don't you know this? Don't you know this? This is garbage, whatever. It shows that you're never, ever going to impact people in a positive way with what, with your goals. You do not know how to communicate, and you're letting your emotions get the best of you, and it's going to cause you to be ineffective. That's tough love again, but it's the truth. And and the advice you had, Nathan, was good. Like, it's like
you just got to get your facts under your belt, I think, and kind of come in and say, here's actually all the statistics, Doug, and why I disagree, with a straight face and not like
when Doug was on, the other Doug, and I asked him, if you pull a random person out of Omaha, Nebraska, is he more likely to be Republican or Democrat? Republican. If you pull a person who happens to be a murderer out of Detroit or whatever, Cleveland, more likely to Democrat or Republican? Well, if it's a murderer, Republican. I mean, murderers are Republican because that's their nature.
Yeah.
I mean, can you hear yourself?
Yeah.
And this is this is the moral high horse I'm talking about, right? It's like Democrats are better people, and who they are.
Well, people who are Democrats tend to be more educated, and I do think that you get this kind of negative effect, right, where you can get. I mean, I would have tendencies towards the Democratic left, I think, in terms of if I were in the US. But I think people have to be really careful that they don't do this thing where they sort of view themselves as, like above everyone else, and because of the education and the way that they're thinking about it. Like I'm enlightened and educated and approaching it from this point of view, not like the kind of vulgar blue collar way of viewing things or something, right? And I think that is a danger for people who are educated and then lean Democrat.
How am I going to do this? I got 3 people. See, this is what I don't. Never mind. Hey Ben, what's up? You're muted. Oh, then now you're muted.
Oh, I'm a Seattle Democrat, but I can't stay too long. I have to go commit a murder in a half hour.
I like you already.
I've been watching you for years, so I figure I could give a try at being a Democrat and also being dead inside like you. So
Excellent.
We'll see.
I love that. Well, go ahead. I'm listening.
Yeah, so I kind of like some of the stuff that the other Doug said earlier, that you were just bringing up the whole idea about if you pull a random person out of Detroit who's a murderer, what's the more likely to vote for? Did you consider the possibility it's possible they don't vote?
Yeah.
Okay. So if I pull a murderer out of Detroit, what age do you think that person is?
Between 16 and 30.
Okay. What's the probability that, and what race are they?
It's probably 50% African American and 50% other.
Okay. What do you think the probability of a person like that votes? At all?
Low, very low.
Okay. So the probability that I pick a random person out of Detroit who's a murderer, it's not very likely.
I know where
that
you're
they
going,
vote
but
Democrat.
you're missing the point. I never made the claim about more likely to vote Democrat. I said come from a Democratic area.
But that was the question you asked the other Doug, wasn't it?
Nope. Oh, sorry. On the opinion thing. Oh, that's what you're going on. Not this.
Yeah, if I pick a random murderer out of Detroit and ask, are they more likely to vote Republican or Democrat?
Yeah, yeah.
I'm saying, well, it's more likely they didn't vote at all.
Yeah, but okay, I understand what you're saying. You're saying that, these murderers don't vote, but that's a different question than are they more likely to lean Democrat or Republican, right? That's a different issue.
Well, if you exclude all the non-voting ones, I suppose.
No, like whether you vote or not is a separate issue than whether you lean Republican or Democrat. Like I don't vote in the United States. I lean Republican.
Right.
Right. So the fact I don't vote, you can still say, and actually I'm a great example. You pluck me out and you say, well, Doug doesn't vote, so therefore you can't say he's Republican. Well, but he leans Republican.
Okay, so yeah, I meant to ask this first. It's like what your definition is of Republican or Democrat. So you're going on leanings.
Yeah.
But how do we know what someone's leanings are if they don't have any political activity other than having a YouTube channel, of course?
From just making the inference, what Doug and I were talking about, making inferences of where they were from, how they've been raised.
So when you say inference, I'm hearing applying stereotype.
Yes.
Okay.
Is that wrong?
I think it may be inaccurate.
We use stereotypes
there may
all
be
the
confounding
time. Is it a stereotype
factors.
to say that someone pulled out of Omaha, Nebraska is a Republican? Is that a stereotype?
Yes, and it may be inaccurate.
Yeah,
because
it
there
may be inaccurate,
factors.
but we're using the probabilities, right?
Right, but we have to be careful what conclusions we draw.
Why?
If we care about truth.
Okay, but is there something else here? I'm sensing there's something getting at. There's a downside, and we want to be careful of some type of downside.
Well, so I did some Google searches on, murder rates and committed by political affiliation and found nothing in the peer-reviewed research on this. The only results I found were like, a National Review article, and like lots of conservatives talk about this and then ask, why is no one else talking about it? And that's all I can find. So I'm kind of wondering.
Yeah, well, because
sitting here is like, well, should I believe this?
It would be great if we had a poll, like if we did a survey and not ask the voting question like you were talking about, but just if we could get all the murderers together and ask them, hey, do you lean this way or this way? And then, okay, thank you for your answer. And if whatever the answer is, I will go by it. I'm not stubborn. Fine. Oh,
okay.
What's this?
If we
it's 80% lean Republican? Okay, fine.
But if we don't have that, why are we drawing conclusions without?
We're not drawing conclusions. We're making inferences.
So like if I was a political scientist and I just wanted to write a paper saying, hey, I looked at the statistics of this city and therefore I'm concluding based on the best evidence that I have that most of the murderers are Democrats. Like, do you think that would get published?
Probably not.
And why is that?
Because they would hurt too many people's feelings, like Jay.
That's interesting. So you think that stuff gets published based on how it...
we're humans, Ben.
So I don't actually disagree with you. I think that there's plenty of situations in which various factors do that. But
yeah, so I'm glad we're agreed.
Even if it was the other way around, or if it didn't hurt someone's feelings, I still don't think that would be a sufficient enough statistical study to get published.
Well, let me just ask you point blank. We pull out a murderer at random out of the United States. There's no downside to betting, but you will win millions of dollars if you're right. And you have to bet. You have to. Are you going to bet that someone leans Democrat or Republican if you just pull a random murderer? Doug said Republican, but I'm curious what you'd say. Remember, you could give to charities. If you $10 million, you could win. from what you know of the stats and where people are from, well, how would you bet?
So I guess part of my question with this hypothetical is, if it turns out that the person that we picked is apolitical, if I picked apolitical, could I win millions of dollars, or is we just that a wash?
Well, think of it this way. Think we're doing like many at the same time, and we're doing an average. And let's say we have this metric: 0 is completely independent. One number is to the left, one number is to the right. You know what I'm asking, right?
Well, now I'm actually more confused because you first started saying we're picking one.
Ben, are you being
And now you're saying
purposely
we're picking a
obtuse
pool.
here because you don't want to answer this question? You don't want to entertain the hypothetical?
I'm entertaining the hypothetical.
Okay.
It just keeps changing.
We pull out 10 murderers. I'm trying to make
Okay.
I'm trying to make this very specific because I'm feeling pushback. We pull out 10 murderers, and we have a system of gauging their leanings left, middle, right. And after we're done, we average the scores. You get to bet. What would you bet? Do you bet left, middle,
So you're asking
right?
which one is the highest count?
Do you want to talk to him, Nathan? He's not understanding me.
I was talking to people in the chat, sorry, so I wasn't really listening, so I don't know the disagreement.
Ben, what's your question
So-
to me? What are you not
So
understanding?
let me see if I understand your hypothetical. So you're saying we take 10 people.
This is just like Poof or Drown. Atheists, listen to this. This is just like Poof or Drown. Poof or Drown.
Trying to
Ben.
understand as best I can here. You're saying we take 10 random people out of the city and we measure their political we take 10 random murderers out of the city and we measure their political affiliation. Are you asking me to place a bet on which of those 3 buckets I think is bigger?
Yes.
Okay. Well, the biggest bucket I think would be apolitical. And the second best, I have no idea. Just flip a coin.
Okay. That's a very safe answer. Okay, thanks for coming on, Ben.
All right.
I think that's a cop-out answer, to be honest. He's basically saying, by saying, is it leaning left or right? What's more likely? And he's picking right down the middle, and I don't know the second box. Like, how is that not a cop-out?
Maybe he's being honest. I don't know.
Do not believe, Ben. You are scared to say what you really think because of. And the thing is, I would have been totally fine with whatever answer he gave, other than the one he did. It's like Poof or Drown. Well, I want to say a combination of Poof and Drown at the same time that makes God look good, and yet babies not suffer. Like that's the type of answer he gave there.
Yeah, maybe I didn't listen to enough of the question to get the thing I was talking to people about in the chat was that I think that Peter Boghossian hung out with Viktor Orban, the dictator of Hungary, and has been saying like, oh, he's a kind of, you know, an all right guy actually, and things like that, right? And I was talking to people about whether or not that is a good reason to kind of think that someone has bad political judgment. Oh, I'm getting feedback.
No, it's Zeleny. Turn off your tab, please.
Sorry.
Okay. Finish up, Nathan.
So I'll try and make it quick. It's just to say, I think that basically if someone conflates someone being nice with them for meaning that they're like policies economically and politically are good because they were a nice guy and they seem to like care about having a conversation with you and stuff, that makes me think that the person has like bad political judgment. It's why like conflicts of interest, right, between like politicians who have like people pay gifts and bribes to them makes them more likely to agree with those lobbyists and things like that, right? And so I think that that's a reason to reject that's some evidence that Boghossian's views are going to be slightly biased, right? That he accepts, you know, like a paid-for holiday like that, with a dictator and stuff. That does do something to my beliefs about his political beliefs.
Before I go on, yes, I do realize that correlation is not causation. I got so many it's like these kids think I don't know these things. But you know, oftentimes in science we use correlations to determine what's caused or what's not. Like, and the thing is, I'm not even making that point. I'm just stating I'm taking two metrics and I'm putting them side by side, and that alone is causing people to get upset. Zeleny, what do you have to say?
Personally, I found it weird that you don't accept Doug's point. Like, it seems to me to be pretty obvious. I don't know.
Which point was that?
Like, well, that personality types of people who lean Republican or Democrat. For example, if I were to ask you, if we take the demographic population which believes that the Earth is 6,000 years old, are they more likely to lean Republican or Democrat?
Republican.
So why would it be like weird to suggest something similar for aggressive people and violent people?
Well, because I think you can have aggression within the Democratic Party. Is that unreasonable?
No, but it's usually
what
like.
was your answer? No, that's not
so
unreasonable.
It's not unreasonable, but it's usually like passive aggression.
No, but Zeleny, think about this. Think about people who are so passionate about what they believe in, and then there's a roadblock to their goals. One could argue that the more sensitive or passionate you are, i.e. Democrat, the more likely you are to commit murder.
Do you really think Democrats are more passionate than like Republicans?
I would say that's probably the wrong word, but I think even Democrats would admit that if you take the bell curve distribution, there's a slight shift to the left on the sensitivity, compassion. Democrats have more of that than Republicans. I think most people would agree with that's very reasonable, but I think it's slight. It's not as big as people think, but I do think that passion, that sensitivity, if it's blocked, that it can frustrate people, and that frustration can cause murder. You see it in protests, right?
Sure, that seems like a theoretically.
Zeleny, do you think Antifa leans more left or right?
Left, and as far as I know, they don't kill people.
As far as you know, would you be surprised to know that they have?
No, I wouldn't be surprised that there
so
was a few cases.
There's an example. Let's say there's just one case of that, and I don't know, but there's an example of where the other Doug, was wrong, right?
Well, not really. He wasn't given an absolute case. He was just saying things lean more to the right. So, for example, you compare Antifa and their violence with, for example, far-right terrorist groups such as the Waffen Gruppen, like various nutjob militias, sovereign citizen
But you
groups,
just admitted
etc.,
Antifa
etc.
leans left, yes?
Yes, sure.
And let's say Antifa, through their protests, did end up killing someone, either directly or, I don't know, by burning a building down and there was someone inside. Do you agree then there's an example of someone on the left having this personality type of killing, destroying? Would you agree that
Sure.
that's an example? Good, we're in agreement. Thanks for coming on.
So I think where people like Zeleny, right, and the Democrats are getting, people who are democratic leaning are getting frustrated here is that I agree that what they're seeing what's coming, right, and so they're kind of like preempting it and pulling out. But I think what they want, right, is they don't want the conversation to stop there. They want to go further and talk about,
As soon as we come to agreement, we're done. Because we got more people who went on. And a lot of new people too. Oh.
One thing I was going to ask, by the way, Doug, about the things you said about the COVID vaccine, and obviously you could be in the group of people who have adverse side effects, but I was wondering, since stopping the all meat diet, has that had any effects on your blood pressure?
Yeah, someone asked me that too. I've been on 2 completely different diets when it's happened. So basically, last fall, I wasn't on any diet, like special diet. and it happened. And then I went on the meat diet early spring, and then now I'm on like 80% vegetarian diet. I've tried different things. Nothing's helping. Actually, the only thing that helps is alcohol. I'm dead serious.
I mean, that's the same for a lot of problems.
Like but I don't want to have to drink alcohol for the rest of my life. Like, this is nuts.
Yeah, that is weird. I mean, I know that some people have had like weird side effects, but again, like I think that there are ways of, you need to look at more data to really make these claims about whether or not you personally would have made that choice in hindsight. So I think you could look at, for example, like the population group that you're in for your age, and Mike, darkened understanding, you might want to mute. Sorry,
I muted him already.
Oh, cool. Yeah, just because, for example, your risk of having a heart attack, right, in the age group that you're in is significantly lower whilst being vaccinated than if you'd got COVID without it. Or like the effects from long COVID are really bad for the people who develop it, and again, people who are vaccinated before contracting COVID.
But Nathan, my big thing is this: it's everything you're saying could be true. The thing is, do not be scared. We as a population do not be scared to say something bad and negative about vaccines.
Well, it's not that I'm happy
No, I
to
agree
say,
with you on that. Yeah.
I'm happy to say something negative in the sense of, look, maybe
declare
the
to the world right now that a vaccine could actually kill you. The COVID vaccine can actually kill you. Be willing to say that.
The vaccine could actually kill you.
Yeah, and so,
but I think what we have to do is not stop the conversation there, right? Because if you only say that, the problem is people hear what they want to hear.
I know, greater
and
good
what
argument.
they need to
I get
hear.
it.
And they need to look at all of the actual, and there is a large amount of data. There's people who
agree
do
with you.
PhDs and things on these.
I agree with you, but the very first step, like this is what we need to do as a society, is that very first step I just said, and then have the longer conversation. What you're implying later, I agree. But the first step is,
maybe you're right.
Republicans, say something negative about other Republicans. Democrats, say something negative about other Democrats. People who are for the climate change, environmental stuff, say something negative about the research you've seen or the way it's been handled. Say something negative about vaccines. Say something that, don't be scared. Don't get caught in this in-group bubble. Get people who love you to be mad at you for what you say.
So this is the issue, though, with how people consume their information, right? Because the main way people consume their information is through social media, where either short clips, sound bites, and tweets and things like that, where what's informing people's opinions and how they're finding in groups to feel to polarize alongside, right, on various issues. And so people aren't generally actually ever having that longer debate that with the nuance. People are just consuming the sound bites and things, and that's because these kind of social media sites, YouTube, Twitter, etc., they're made to grab your attention. They're made to capture that short amount of focus and not have the nuanced discussion and stuff. And so that's why I think it's harmful, and maybe I don't know, maybe what you're saying is right. Maybe if people say that one bad thing about the people they like before they have a conversation, maybe that would help. But I also don't know if the sound bites do a lot of harm because of the attention economy.
Doug Dean just gave me a great idea. I've never tried weed in my life. It's true. That's true. I've never done weed. And he's saying maybe I should try some for my head.
I think.
Oh, hang on. You're muted.
Yeah, I think Doug. Yeah, because I could hear him.
Because when you first came,
I'm sorry, Doug.
When you first came on.
So I think Doug's talking. You're just talking about an honest position, right? So if I say that the COVID vaccine can kill people, sure, that's to me that's an honest position to take. And if I'm not mistaken, it may have very well, almost or have killed a couple people, right? Vaccines kill people. We went through. There's the polio one killed 2,000 people or something, but that's an honest position. And with politicians, they're not looking to be honest. They're not going to talk shit about their own kind because that's not the game they're playing. In my opinion,
no, let's
right?
not get too cynical. That's my job.
Do those politicians take the vaccine as well, knowing that it can kill people?
Oh, look.
Well, that's the
I
thing
think
is, so from Doug's point of view, maybe it's the people who are vaccine conspiracy theorists need to say, yeah, the vaccine kills people. Sorry, the virus kills people. You know, that's what Doug would be saying. I think they need to be doing is saying, look, the vaccine, I don't know what's going on with my voice. The virus kills people, and prefacing everything they say with that.
But Doug, I have a couple questions for you. One is I didn't see the interaction. I just caught the music. But what did you do to piss Jay off? Because he's got like some racist what is it, like fuck that racist PineCreek something or other.
I'm not
heard
exactly sure what I did, to be honest.
I think you hurt his feelings. Like,
so I
seriously hurt
think
his
it was
feelings.
probably the things that you were saying about like statistically it's true, right, that most crime is committed by black people in America or something, and I suspect that
50%
some
of
of these
murders.
things I suspect that some of those things are probably like close to his heart, right, being black, and so maybe you said something around those issues that made him angry at you, and then he wanted to be like, I want more nuance, right, in the conversation, but then he just got angry and upset and it didn't go on.
And the second question I wanted to ask is, did you say you're on a vegetarian diet?
Yeah, 80%.
Why did you switch from I must have missed that in somewhere on the street. Why did you switch?
I switched when or why?
Well, both.
A couple months ago now, and I did it because someone said, hey, if you did the meat diet thing, why don't you do the vegetarian? Okay.
Do you have I was vegetarian for like 6 or 7 years, and I've been back to eating meat, and I feel a little bit better, but only in the sense of more well-rounded diet. Like, I'm enjoying it. But do you feel any difference having gone from all meat to vegetarian?
I gained a little more weight back, and I might have a little more energy, but now with my head thing, it's hard to tell. So I don't know. But really, not the meat diet's way better for controlling hunger. Like it's just easy. As soon as you put carbs in your body says, "Give me more." It's like a drug.
I agree. I've been struggling with that myself, and how to I've been doing some fasting. But anyway, to push you back into the political stream, I do have one question, because I think you and I agree on a whole lot. But the one place that I saw you push back the other day, talking about and it doesn't have anything to do with trans people, it's just a conservative position. But it seems to be the example I'm going to use is not to have an argument about trans people, but you said, should I be fired at a place of business for maybe refusing to, or calling a trans person the wrong gender, or not the gender that they wanted to be called? Do you remember that?
Are you talking about the conversation I had yesterday with
T-Jump, I think? Yeah.
I don't think it was exactly phrased that way, but it was more, I was asking, why do you think certain, companies can do whatever they want if they have certain laws or rules? And then I asked the question, why do these rules even exist?
Well, the point that I've always wanted to make, and maybe this is just something that I was thinking, and I'm not trying to pin you on it, but a lot of the conservative position seems to be, don't tell me what to do. But I'm of the thinking, I like the conservative opinion, like less regulation, less government, all of this stuff. So if it's my company and I say, hey, you're going to do this, and if you don't comply by these rules that I've set, you're going to get out, right? Like, that's the beauty of living in America. But a lot of conservatives say, well, hey, I don't have to do this. And whenever I hear that conversation, I think well, aren't we missing the big overarching thing that I think I agree with you on, is companies should be able to set whatever rules and regulations they want in place as that particular company.
Yep.
That was my only thought.
Yeah, I agree.
Because to me, if you say that, then it just kind of makes the trans debate, or whatever the conversation is going on about, should I be fired for this at the company? Well, I don't think it has anything to do with you and that trans person.
Are there employment laws in the US around you can't discriminate on the basis of skin color or gender or whatever in employment? Or is that not the case in the US?
A little.
Well, I don't think they phrase it skin color. I think they say race, right?
Right, sure. So would it maybe do you think like trans laws should be like that, in the sense that you can't like say you don't want to employ trans people, in the same sense you couldn't say I don't want to employ like gay people or something like that?
I don't want to employ heterosexuals. I don't want to employ.
Yeah.
But I think a lot, it's state to state, it varies, right? Like we have, when I was in Virginia, it's a right to refuse state, if I'm not mistaken. So you can pick and choose, and then it's on, the waters get muddy, right? Like if somebody, like let's say I turn down a black guy that walks in because I don't think he's qualified, and he wants to make a fuss and say, well, he turned me down because of my race, right? Then he can go through a very long process, I think, in financial both, to say that. I think that's where it kind of ends up. But that's my only experience with like being an owner of a business, being able to say, hey, I can hire and fire whoever I want, and then I can fire you for any reason. Mostly, same thing goes, unless I, say, hey, I'm firing you because you're black or you're trans or anything like that. But
so you just have to lie about the reason. Is that what you're saying?
Well, if you're honest, if you're an honest person, I think it comes out in the wash. If you're a bigoted, if you're a bigot or something doing it, then I think that's going to come back to bite you in the ass. And I think that's kind of where Virginia lies it and says, hey, look, these are the laws put in place to protect, whether it be race or I don't know what if they're trans laws in place or not, but it says like, look, we're going to assume everybody's honest. And if you cross these lines, then it's up to the employee to say, hey, you crossed the line. Same sexual assault.
Assume
right?
everybody's
like,
honest about what?
So I can fire a woman because she was a bad employee, right? But and it's on her if she goes and says, I think the state, for Virginia to be a right to work state, it's under the assumption that everybody's running an honest business, that I'm not firing people for being racist. That's why, because I'm a racist, or I'm not firing people because they're women or doing anything of that nature. They have to go and prove the fact, like if the black guy gets fired for being a terrible employee and he says, well, I was fired because the owner's a racist or because I was black, he has to go prove that, right? And I think that's at least this was 20 years ago, right? That was kind of a hard and long process to get into, and a right to work state, because you had to literally like prove it's what, and only because Nathan brought up like, hey,
like I lean to be more of an employer than an employee, but I asked the question, why would I hire any human? If I hire a woman and I look at her the wrong way, sexual harassment. If I hire a black person and I fire them because they don't do a good job, whatever, racism. If I hire a trans person and I forget the pronoun one day, lawsuit. Why not just wait for robots and be done with humans?
I think a lot of companies are going to go in that direction.
I mean, where to even begin with?
It's like, you people are so needy. I need. Love me.
Look, it's going to automation. Haven't you guys watched that documentary about the Lego factory that literally like the truck drives up, and once that truck pulls up to like the docking bay, everything is automated. There's like two dudes and a brain or something.
I think I'd rather.
But I am ready.
I think I'd rather have a human don't change my diaper than a robot.
I don't know, Doug.
Because the pinchers. I don't want to get.
That's just a bad design.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I'm definitely ready for the fully automated gay communism or whatever is going to come when AI takes over.
Oh, fuck, Nathan. But look, that's the case in point is you've got someone like Jay Bundy, right? That's got a fire up his ass to like, if you look at his channel, at least to me, right? Like, and I've had great conversation with him, and I've seen him have great conversation with other people, but he's gone full force into like anti-Christian, like everything.
Oh,
he's got an act.
Yeah.
Doug, let me make this one simple point. When you were talking about businesses, there are lots of black people that come on here. There are lots of liberals that come on here. There are lots of people that come on here and absolutely enjoy their conversations with you. Jay is one of the first few people that I've seen come on here and be like, fuck you, Doug, you're a racist and a bigot and all of this stuff.
He didn't say that to me, at least to my face.
Yeah, he didn't say it. He got wound up, but he didn't say it like that, I don't think.
The
Well,
thing
his
is,
stream,
the thing is,
what's his stream say right now, Nathan?
the thing is, even if he did, like, it doesn't make a dent.
I'm done
And a
with
sw-
racist
and,
fuckface.
Maybe I'm
Doug.
wrong. Yeah. Oh, he's saying you posted this somewhere.
He's
posted
got a
that.
live.
Hey, and you know
video
what? Don't
going
give,
right now.
okay.
don't give him any advertising. Like,
I'm sorry, Doug. I didn't mean to in that sense. I just was like, "What'd you do?"
I see. Sorry. Yeah, I didn't realize that. I thought you meant like he said
and
it.
I think let's make this a little more interesting. Like, getting back to the Democrat Republican thing, I think a lot of Democrats don't fully realize that calling a Republican a racist doesn't make a dent to them. Like, you're trying.
Yeah, because if they
hurt
cared about
them?
that, they'd be a Democrat.
Like, you're trying to hurt them, and like, just I should say, name calling in general doesn't work for people.
Now I'll disagree with you there. There are certain Republicans or personality types in the Republican Party, on all across the board, that are going to get pissed off at name calling. And now a racist isn't going to get offended at you calling him a racist because he's like, damn right, I'm whatever he is. But if you call him
he's not a real family man.
What are you kids using as like a cis pony boy or soy something?
Oh, soy boy, is that? Yeah, maybe
Right,
that would.
so-
I think you'd have to go with something he
Hang on.
cares about. Like,
Are you saying that
Right.
some Republicans are sensitive?
No, I'm saying that everybody takes name calling. It's just what the names. I'm saying everyone's going to get upset.
There are some names
if you
that upset
call
some
them the
people
right
and not others.
name.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, I got to change the room size. Someone else wants in. A real Christian, actually.
Uh-oh.
Okay, I think you might come back automatically. We'll find out.
Is it Jesus who's joining us?
Okay, Franklin, I'll try to come in. What was I going to say? Oh, yeah, name calling.
Yeah. There's a name that hurts everyone. Was the last thing said?
Yeah, like, everybody's hurt a little bit by name calling. I was being a little too dogmatic, but in general, people on the right are less affected by being called a name, whether it be racist or anything, than someone on the left. Like, if you really want to hurt someone on the left, like if Jay was to come in here and if I felt the need to retaliate, Franklin, we're getting some weird feedback from you. Yeah, mute yourself for now. If I wanted to retaliate against Jay, I would say, you're an evil person. You're hurting people. Like, that's the way to attack a Democrat, to say, you're hurting people. But you say that to a Republican? What? Like, it doesn't impact them the same way because it's more of the person responsible. No, it's people hurting themselves a lot of times. Yeah, Franklin, it's bad feedback. I don't know. It's not going to work if it's... Maybe try resetting and refreshing your mic. Like, plug it out, plug it in, and then refresh. Oh,
so there's a Twitter account.
We can hear you.
Oh, yeah.
Say something, Franklin.
Testing.
No, we can hear you, but it's bad.
Yeah, it's terrible. Okay. I'm not sure. I don't even know. I got so many USBs. I don't even know which one's what.
Why would you do it though, Doug? No, I wouldn't do it, Svez. I wouldn't do that to Jay. I'm just saying, if you wanted to hurt someone who leans left, you tell them that. If you want to hurt someone who's for, let's say, trans rights, the way you hurt them is you say, did you know that what you're doing, you think you're doing good, but you're actually hurting them and making it worse? That you might actually be killing kids? Like, that is how it's like, boom. Because they have this passion that they're saving lives, and you bring up the idea that they actually might be killing lives.
So there's a Twitter account called Obama Era Conservative Memes, and the non-stop hot takes are like all the Obama era conservative memes.
Are you able to hear me?
Much better, Franklin.
That's better.
Is that better?
Yeah. Okay. So,
all right.
So what do you have? What's your hot take here?
I don't know how hot it is, but I know you're dealing with politics and demographics, and I wanted to relay this thing that happened. So typically for me, you know, I'm pretty political, and this kind of dovetails into the way I look at stuff. To me, it's all about pattern recognition. So there was, I remember on the radio one time hearing about, I don't know if you guys remember the Donald Sterling case, where his girlfriend recorded him saying the N-word a bunch of times. I had no idea who this guy was. Listened to the radio. I said, well, this guy is super wealthy and he's racist.
Was this the basketball team owner?
Clippers owner, I believe. I think it was the Clippers. And as soon as I heard that, I wanted to find out who this guy was. They didn't say who he was. They didn't say political affiliation. But as soon as I heard that, based on my pattern recognition from the past, I said, well, this guy's got to be a Democrat. So looked him up. Democrat. He's a racist guy, and he's fixing to be given an award by the NAACP, Obama voter, and all that stuff. So I say that to say we get confused by the labels. People who are racist don't want to call themselves racist. So, you know, I don't know where you guys want to take that, but it seemed, I mean,
what was the thing that this guy, NBA owner, did that made you think he was a Democrat?
He was rich, wealthy. Well, he's wealthy and racist and white.
No, but
powerful and racist.
Sounds like Republican to me.
No. My question is, how did you know he?
See that? Okay, so do the pattern though.
Completely kidding.
Oh, okay.
Like I would have just said, well, he lives in California. You know, it's not just a coin flip.
Yeah.
It's like
sure,
60,
and I'm not
chance
saying
you're
it's
Democrat.
anecdotal for sure, but it matched what I expected. So it was one of those things where I had noticed certain patterns. I wanted to see if it rang true because they didn't tell me who the guy was. And to me, the fact that he was being given an NAACP award told me a lot. It told me that the people who, you know, the idea of race, you said it doesn't hurt Republicans to call them racist. I actually don't think that's true. The only person it would hurt to call racist is a non-racist. That's how you get them.
Franklin, there's no such thing as a non-racist. Haven't you read?
Well, maybe in the loose way that we use the term.
Everybody's racist,
for sure, but you know,
Franklin, can I interrupt you one point to touch on what Doug said? Because I agree, because I've always said, and people hate this actual pushback, is it's not if we're racist, but it's how racist we are. And once we acknowledge that we're all racist, then we can actually start to do the work we need to, right? So anybody that says, oh, I'm not racist, or says I'm a good person because I'm Christian, I don't think they've put the wherewithal or the thought into the position or what they're actually talking about. That's just my personal
What if someone
opinion.
says they're a good racist? What do you say?
I'd say, well, you probably got a good beat on who you are.
Well, that's what I say. I tell people I'm a good racist.
Well, I'm sorry, Doug. You mean coming from you?
Doesn't mean he's good at being racist.
Yeah, I thought he was talking anyway.
If everybody's a racist, well, you might as well be a good one.
What about the term Nazi that gets often thrown on the right, when it seems to me, I mean, my understanding about Nazi is isn't it a acronym for National Socialist Workers Party? How would that describe conservative capitalists in our society? I mean, didn't Mussolini write a book?
Are you saying, Franklin, the people who lean left have killed more people since 1930 than anybody else?
I'm so sorry, I missed how did this come up? Like, Democrats kill more people than Republicans. How did this whole thing start?
Oh, well, start with a video I made a few days ago. Of course, but I'm trying to remember what even made me think about doing it. What was the trigger? I don't remember. But anyhow, it was midterms were about to go.
Boredom, Nathan. That's what started this whole thing. Was Doug being bored at like 1 a.m, like, fuck, no live streams.
Yeah, no, seriously. I think I said that to one of the commenters. I was bored, and I just wanted to, like, I would trigger some people, and it worked. But yeah, I think you can't really deny that most murders in the United States occur in Democratic leaning places.
But hold on.
And you have to ask, well, what's the cause of there being more murders?
Yeah, but the first step is for people to agree with that. Like sort of like
no. But is it Democratic leaning places? But what does that imply? Like, let's say we say, okay, it does.
It implies that Democrats are evil.
No, that doesn't imply who's doing the killing. So look.
I'm saying about what's the cause.
So if it doesn't imply that Democrats are evil, then having a few people storm January 6th doesn't imply Republicans are against
give me 1
democracy,
second.
right?
1 second. So you said most murders occur in Democratic areas, correct?
Yeah.
But that could very well be because Republicans are going in killing those fucking Democrats. To me, it doesn't say anything about like
you could be
who's
right
doing the killing or why they're doing
I
the
forget
killing.
your first name.
You tell me your real first name,
Doug.
and I'll tell you mine.
I say it all the time. What's your first name?
I saw a stream where somebody was like, "Well, Doug's not your real
tell
name."
me your
and
name.
you're like, yeah, I know. Sean.
Okay. Now, what is your guess?
Sean with an S.
If you were to poll all the murderers in 2021 and ask them, do you lean left or right? And then you collect up all the data and you average it out. What do you think? And you had a bet. The previous caller refused to answer. Ben, he refused to answer it. Let's see if you can, Sean. You had a bet. Are they more likely to lean left or right? Democrat or Republican?
All the in
2021, last year, like we know who all the murderers are, and we asked them just point blank. What do you think?
Man, my honest answer is I have no idea.
You have no idea.
Hold on, why? If I'm forced to answer from where I live, I see more hostility coming from, if we're talking about the right, like the far right and the far left, or if there is such a thing.
Okay, let me ask you this.
I see more hostility coming from the far right.
This is like a poof or drown question, so I don't need a long explanation afterwards. Let me ask you a different way. Let's say you were to poll them and ask all the murderers, did your mother vote for Biden or Trump? Your mother.
Man,
you're asking the murderer about their mother. What do you think? And we tabulate the data. What do you think the answer would be?
My mother's a Trump voter, but I don't.
We're asking the murderers. Did your mother vote for Biden or Trump? What's your guess?
Again, I'm gonna say Trump because I see more hostility from the right.
Knowing that the majority of the murders take place in inner cities.
So this is a difference, though, between the voting intention of the individuals who commit the crimes and who's in power in the places that they commit them, right? So it could be the case that most of the people who commit the crimes are Republican in their voting intention, but the crimes mostly take place in Democratic.
Right, yeah, but that's what I'm asking.
Well, that's what I said. But Doug, is this true? Like, is this a real fact?
What? Which part?
Or are you just saying most major cities lean left, so that's where?
No, that's the video I made. Did you watch my video?
Come on, Doug. I mean, I try to, but I don't hold everything up here.
This is what got people so upset. I took the top. I actually did the top 20, and I did 3 different sources in 3 different ways. But anyhow, I took the top 10 cities in the United States with the most murders per capita. And then all I did is those cities and those counties and those districts, then I just put who did they vote for in 2020. That's all I did. I made no conclusions, didn't imply anything.
You can't know because the vote was stolen. So,
and can you guess the results, Sean?
Left
by 60 to 70% consistently. And that's true for the top 20 cities. And the top 20 cities in the United States for murder makes up a huge percentage of all the murders in the United States. And they're taking place in areas that voted for Biden, for example. These are facts.
Sure, I just don't see. And Nathan, maybe you could help me out here, but is this a correlation thing? Like, I don't see, because
it's what's the cause of the. It's inferring. Yeah, it's inferring that there's some kind of causal link, right, between the Democrats being in power and those murders taking in place. That's the extra step. So, for example, I mean, you could look at the previous who was in those states previously, and maybe it was Republicans, right? And so it's actually the effects of Republican. It could be that it's the effects of Republican policies that you see the crime rate going up over time, and then the Democrats get voted in, right? And so it's still the highest, but the reason it's gone up is because the point is that, you know, it can be complicated to infer what the actual like causes are in these situations. You can't.
And maybe that's the problem for me, Doug, is simply this. So it could be Republicans killing Democrats, right? But why do you say because the murders are happening in more Democratic heavy areas that it's the Democrats that are doing the killing? That's what I don't understand.
For the same reason that if you pick someone up randomly out of Omaha, Nebraska, they're more likely to be a Republican. Exact same inference.
Can I pick up on Nathan's point? He mentioned that theoretically it could have been Republican policy and then now it's a Democratic city. Actually, I think if you go back and look, most of the urban areas in the United States have Democratic control for decades.
Yeah, I'm saying you could do that, but that's one possibility, right? There's a bunch of other possibilities that could be true, and the point is that the cause between the higher murder rate and Democratic policies is like one explanation for why that's happening. And there's like a number of other explanations that could be true, and you'd have to look at them all and a lot more data to get to that point.
Anecdotally speaking, I'm in Florida, and I know that some of the people that I meet from up north who move here talk about the crime as being one of the reasons why they moved away, as well as the tyrannical political policies.
And you can do something similar with, let's say, child mortality rates. You can do the same thing with abortion. You can do the same thing with, what was the other one we talked about in the comment section? Another biggie.
But abortion, we know who's having the abortions, right? With what you're saying, we don't know who's doing the killing. You're just saying because there's more killing here and they're more densely Democratic populated, that means more Democrats are doing the killing.
Yeah.
But I don't see is that a correlation?
Oh, you don't think that's reasonable?
I don't know. I don't.
You don't think it's reasonable that in a heavily Democratic place there's killings going on that's not done by Democrats who lean Democratic?
No. I didn't say that. I don't think it's unreasonable, but I don't think we can say for sure that Democrats are doing most of the killing.
You do not think it's unreasonable, which means you think it is reasonable, but we don't know for sure. Is that your stance? So
I can't.
If that's your stance, we're agreed.
No, I mean, Doug, we agree on a lot of things.
I know.
I don't think I can say just because all the killing.
The last person who agreed with me, I booted him.
Well, please don't boo me. But I don't think I can't say for sure because I don't know. We don't have. Why don't we have any We need to have the actual factual or whatever.
Do you feel there's something inside of you that needs to say we don't know for sure?
That's the way that I'm built. So you can say, oh, well, look at all this killing in the Democratic area. It's being done by Democrats. And I'm going to say, Doug, why are the Democrats killing people? And you're going to say, well, because I think it's because they're more sensitive.
I understand that. The question of why is another longer conversation. But the fact that I find interesting that some people even have to add that caveat.
We don't know. I'm saying I don't know who's doing the killing. You're saying you know who's doing the killing, but in fact we have. But
we don't.
idea
In the same way, we don't know the sun's going to come up tomorrow morning, right? We really don't know, right? So it's these, and I do it too. Like I always give caveats, but sometimes there's more caveats than others, and I find that there's this hesitation to admit something, and well, we don't know for sure, but yeah, Doug, you are right.
No, I think I must have missed something because all I've heard you say is this: there's more killing happening in Democratic areas. Therefore, I think the killing's being done by Democrats.
Right.
Do you know the killing's being done by Democrats, or are you just making that conclusion because it's
making an inference?
Densely.
But I don't
Right.
even think that's the claim that would be the issue for people who are Democrats. It would be if there's a relationship between democratic policies and people engaging in violent crime, right? Because I don't know, they're not as economically well off or whatever reason, right? But that would be the problem for the Democrats if there was a relationship between the Democrats getting in power and then more violent crime occurs because they're not taking care of people in the right sort of ways that they claim to, rather than the individual's politics being Democrat or Republican. I mean, that's kind of because most people commit like violent crimes for personal reasons or like love and things like that, right?
I think oftentimes they will dismiss violence as a reaction to economic issues, which I don't necessarily intellectually have a problem with, but in regards to long-term policy, I think it still indicates a problem if urban areas have been under the same sort of political structure for a long time. That to me tells me, even if you say that bad economic circumstances cause more violence and therefore murders, that seems reasonable, then maybe those policies need to change so that the economics is better, unless you say, you know, it's just hard to have good economics in an urban center. I'm not sure if that makes
tell
sense.
that to Japan, right?
Just trying to play devil's advocate.
I know, but like this whole argument, well, Doug, you know, they're close together in these big cities, and that's where conflict happens. Yeah, well, look at Japan. How come they don't have these same problems, or at least to
What
the
about
same degree?
what about the mass murder type people? It appears to me, and I'm right-wing libertarian biased, so I'll come and admit that. So, but it appears to me the media would love to place that right-wing label on these folks that snap and do these things. It also appears to me when you go and look, that's not normally the case. Even in the situation with the Paul Pelosi and that one guy, you know, they said he was like a right-wing guy looking for Nancy.
You made to that.
Kind of look at his situation and his politics and ask his neighbor. I mean, basic, you know, stuff the press is supposed to do.
This is the guy who was there like a QAnon or MAGA person who kind of turned up at the house trying to kidnap his wife. And what happened next? Did he pull out a gun or something? Or I can't remember.
Well, that's the thing. People don't really. Pelosi got hit with a hammer, and how he got there and who he is like the big question.
The husband got hit with the hammer, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Same last name. Paul got hit. Paul Pelosi got hit with a hammer.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Franklin. I haven't been watching the politics. I was just making sure because when I say Pelosi,
You're living
I think of her,
blissfully.
I think of him. Well, it's taken a lot of work to get out of it, and it's still hard to. It's tough.
Hey, Franklin, I was going to ask you, what do you think of what Licona said yesterday or the day before? Of if you take the same evidence for Christianity, apply it to Islam, he still wouldn't become a Muslim because he doesn't like Islam.
I didn't hear that. So
you don't watch my videos either? That was a short I did yesterday. Man, my goodness, nobody loves me. I'm okay with that.
I mean, I guess Licona, sometimes I feel like he goes out of his way to be seen as reasonable. And
no, but that's
I don't know
unreasonable.
if this is his attempt. Yeah, I know, but I could see how he would go. He almost will bash Christianity in a certain, or the evidence of Christianity in a certain way, almost as in my opinion. I think what he's trying to do is say, see how reasonable I am, therefore I'm a Christian, and being a Christian is also so reasonable. That's the way he comes off to me. So I do think there's a kernel of truth to what he says. I mean, there's part of me that doesn't like Islam. You know, when you ask questions to Christians about, I think you asked it, I can't remember which video it was, but you asked it a lot, I think, where is there a kernel, an idea of the reality in which God exists and Jesus didn't rise from the dead. Well, it could be, yeah, it could be Islam, could be that reality. Orthodox Judaism could be that reality. So, you know, I think he's just sort of playing into that sort of.
Well, he's
role
admitting
there.
that it's his desires, his likes and wants, which governs what he believes more so than the evidence, which is totally, I in a way, it is reasonable because that's how most humans behave.
Right.
It actually takes work you have to be dead inside in a way to actually see the evidence for what it is and not let your biases influence you.
Right. And I think, you know, I think one of the times I was on with you, I said something to that out of, I don't know if it's exactly the same, but one of the things that compels me in regards to the evidence, and sure, it taints my view of or pushes me in a positive direction, is the idea that there's this need for Christ. Like I see that need. And I think need is evidence, like in the same way you guys would, if you're, you know,
I agree
in
with you,
evolution.
but the question is evidence for what?
Well, that's the big question. So am I right in it? So here's the deal. And Christ answers in a way that others don't. Doesn't make it true, granted, but it does make, in other words, it becomes, I acknowledge. So I guess what the way I'm looking at it is there's a keyhole and a key, and we're trying to figure out which key matches the keyhole. That's kind of the way that I see it. So, and I think Licona maybe is sort of saying, well, maybe it's a little bit, you know, because it's not as simple, it's not as mechanical as a key and a keyhole. So we still are dealing with humans and our view of reality. So he's acknowledging that his view of reality shapes why the supernatural position he takes is a Christian one, as opposed to, you know, Islam.
You know, Franklin, when you said that just now, it reminded me of a big realization I had a couple of years ago with a friend. Was he's like, well, look, do you still believe in Jesus? And I said, no, not like you do, right? Like not in the Christ. And he said, well, how do you deal with sin? And I said, well, obviously I don't. And he said, well, no, you know, what's your answer to sin? Like, that's like, how do you get there? You're talking, when you say the need, that's what I think. But if there's no, if I don't believe in Jesus, there's no sin. And if I don't believe in sin, there's no Jesus, right? So like the need that you're talking about pointing to, at least from what I hear, is like, hey, I need Jesus to atone for my sins. But for me, it was just, that's what I thought when you said need, because this particular friend also talked about desire being like his desires point toward truth. And for me, that's always been really hard to like even figure out or understand what he was talking about, right? Like how can a desire point, like if I need a lot of things, but they don't point to truth or they don't point to reality. They just point to like me wanting stuff or needing like food to survive or stuff like that, or my desire to have nice things. I don't know what that's supposed to point to. It doesn't seem that any of this stuff works outside of like the whatever you call Christianity. Is that a paradigm or whatever that's called?
Yeah, I think the food thing is really good. I'm glad you said that, because C.S. Lewis, and I brought this up to Doug too at one point. C.S. Lewis said, and I think it's a good analogy, or I guess it's an analogy. Because we hunger, there's food. Because we thirst, there's drink. And you see humans have some desire, and it manifests itself in various different ways for the divine. So his point is there's a pattern there. So therefore there must be divinity, is what he's saying, because there's drink, because there's food. And that gets back to this concept of need. Now the question, that's the keyhole and the key. Do I have the right key? But I think atheists even would say we don't even acknowledge the keyhole. So I think that's where we kind of pass in the night when it comes to, you know, these sort of conversations. But that, I'm just trying to give the Christian I guess my Christian perspective, and I think that C.S. Lewis quote kind of answers that for me in what you said.
Who carried the conversation while I was taking a piss?
Franklin?
That was fast.
Yeah.
Do I get pine points for that?
Yeah, I think so. I didn't give any out today, but I think we've run out of pine points and the game is over. It's time to move on and
Who gets to go to Vegas?
Me, by myself.
It's just you.
I think you're just discriminating because I'm Christian.
If you're going to talk about games for a minute, what's the one with you and Nathan? Like I've seen Nathan, he's been posting some body shots on his late night with Nathan Ormond or whatever. But Doug, I mean, you're looking svelte these days too, dude.
Well, I'm not at my best. It's because of the head thing, and I've been.
Doug's dying.
I'm dying. I'm
Doug,
going to
what's
wait
the
just
head
before
thing,
I'm
if I can
completely dead, and I'll be really lean. Oh my goodness. I'm reading some of the chat here.
Franklin was talking about being needy for Christ, I think is the short of what that is. Sorry, Franklin, I had to throw you under the bus.
Typical atheist rhetoric there.
Well, it's true. Like, I don't think if you're not needy for Christ, you're not going to stay a Christian very long.
Yeah, it's hard to argue. I mean, I think, I do agree with you, Doug. Sometimes I think as a Christian, you just have to come out and say the basics. I mean, don't run from it. You just explain it if you get an opportunity and just admit.
What's the need though, Franklin? You said you talked about like the need pointing to truth or desire pointing to truth. And we know like the need for food and we know that, but like, what's the need for Christ?
Okay.
Or what is that? What are you saying? Like you need what?
Yeah. Here's the answer to that. And this will point to, I think I said this when it come to the flying man experiment or the analogy, because I don't know if you can hear my dogs there. The need is humans don't want to die. So it's as simple as that. Everybody has the desire to live forever. And Jesus shows that it is possible not to do that. Now, if you say that it's just a story, I understand that. But that is still a need that humans have.
Well, sure, I think there's two things for me. One is the obvious, like obviously Doug would be happy if we killed him off tomorrow. But as far as like living forever, but the bigger point to me is there are lots of things that could solve that need, especially like with science getting to where it's at, or I mean the various other religions fulfill that need instantly, right? Like there's so many options on the table to say, hey, if Franklin says, hey, this is my need, and that need is everlasting life, right? Well, we've got all kinds of things that can do that besides Jesus, and very soon, within 1,000 years or so, we might even be able to do that as humans, like, or at least longer than we live now.
Well, I guess sorry, go ahead, Franklin.
I was just going to say, do you trust that in this world, if you were allowed, if science did allow you to stay a long, long life or even forever, that you wouldn't just become somebody's forever slave? Like I could see a scenario in this world with the way that it operates, where that would be a really good way to capitalize on human capital.
That seems like an odd. I mean, I get where you're going, but it seems like
I'm just adding the morality to it.
Well, so it seems to me, I think that we could live along. Do you think that the only way that we could live 1,000 years is if somebody was like using us as a slave, or if that's what it turned into?
No, I'm just being very pessimistic on the human.
So sure, let's just talk about the need for Christ, and that need is everlasting life. Let's just say without any slavery, any kind of weird like thing, let's say in the next 500 years, we develop technology that can literally like transplant my spinal cord and brain into a robot, right? And now I can live as long as I want to. And that robot is similar to a human, right? Like I can feel, I have weird skin, I have like upgrades I can do. Whatever that is, like let's say that allows me to fulfill this need you have through actual technology that people are dreaming of right now. But again, it goes back to, if your sole need is Christ, and that need Christ, the everlasting life, there's so many options on the table. Why, like for me, that's what it is. Like you can fulfill it so many other ways, but your
mic is getting worse, Sean.
I'm
Would
sorry.
you
I'll
say that
pause.
Christ fills your holes?
Yes.
Nice to see you, Sam.
Welcome, Caleb.
God-shaped
Welcome,
hole.
Sample Pack. Sample Pack, what's your real name?
That's God, but people call me Yahweh for short.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, hey, Doug.
Most people don't believe me though, so you know
hey,
they don't
Doug,
believe me. They don't believe in me.
Hey, Doug, if science could have you live forever, would you want to live forever then? Because I've heard you say you wouldn't want to.
No.
Okay.
Don't want to live forever.
I think that
What if
goes
you look
to.
like Nathan though?
Doesn't matter. I'm already bored of you guys. I don't want another.
I think it's the condition. What I would argue that the Bible says that the condition of man improves as well as the expectation of life or the longevity of life.
Who's Diego?
If it's like you're stipulating, Franklin, I think I'd take it. But I think if I had to be a slave to do it, I probably wouldn't, because then if there's no outsies and I had to be a slave forever, I'd be like, I'm not.
I didn't
sure,
mean
but-
to. I didn't mean to say it was contingent on that. I was just being pessimistic about humanity and saying,
If
in
you
this
took
world,
that out of
could
it, I
see
would take it. Sure.
Because you
Franklin,
still have the
would
problem
you-
with evil in this world, right? This is something that us Christians have to deal with too. So, you know, I don't know that that goes away just because we live forever.
Franklin, would you live forever? Okay, what would you rather take? Living forever on Earth or living only a temporary time in heaven?
Probably the second, but I acknowledge I don't understand what heaven is. So I don't think it's harps and clouds and that sort of thing. I'm assuming it's not that. If it is that, I probably would take living forever here on Earth, if I'm being honest.
What if it's mostly just like praising Jesus? Would you...
I actually like that. I would.
Oh,
go
you
that
do
direction.
not.
I've had great experiences doing that, Doug.
You'd like a
Come on,
temporary
man.
time praising Jesus over living forever?
You're dead inside like me, Franklin. You don't like praising things.
I go back and forth between living and dead.
What if it's one long Catholic mass forever and ever and ever?
No. Okay, I go back to the Earth.
Diego, do you got some serious news for us?
Yes, but I don't want to talk about my personal situation.
Okay.
Because something awful happened. A dear friend died last week. He was my same age, and it's the first time that I have to cope with that, being not a TS anymore, and it's kind of trouble to know that maybe there's some things that you could have done that you didn't, and maybe you can feel that pain. And I don't know how can you handle that. Maybe you have more experience than me.
Think about God. Think about all the things God could have done, but he doesn't. And then realize it's not that bad.
You got to forgive Sample Pack. He has no heart, no soul. Like, he's not soft and compassionate like I am.
I'm dead inside, like Yahweh.
He's a Democrat. I'm a Republican. So let me show the real compassion. So there were things that you wish you could have done, you said?
Yeah, sure. So what I'm trying to say is, like, he was a better friend for me than I was for him. And it's like I regret not engaging more with him. He was a troubled person because he was an orphan. His parents died when he was very young, so he was raised by.
How old was he when he died?
So something like that.
How old was he when he died?
29 years old.
What did he die from?
He was facing some depression, and I think it's something related to that. But the family was really quiet about that. So I know.
Was it
fully,
suicide?
Sure about it. Maybe it is very probable that it was the cause.
Was he married?
No.
Well, there's nothing you can do, right? Like, he's gone. He's dead. He'll never, ever be back. And so I understand you're feeling this. I wish I could have been as good a friend to him as he was to me. And is your question, how do you deal with that? I mean, my guess is you're being hard on yourself, and you were a better friend to him than you're giving yourself credit for, maybe?
Yeah, I mean, when you let the idea that there's nothing you can do because he's dead, he's really dead, there's nothing you can do. However, you maybe have some regrets. It is like a different feeling for me, because when you were a believer, you say, it's okay, he's in heaven, you will see him again, you will, Jesus is Lord, and he will make him his life in the afterlife, he will compensate whatever he was done his life. However, now there's not that idea. I think he's fully dead. There's nothing.
Right.
That's when I'm trying to
If you think about it,
say.
really, what difference does it make? Like, on this earth, at least, whether Christianity is true or false, he's never coming back, right, to earth.
That answers prayer.
Well, yeah, unless he stinketh and thus he riseth. But
did it once, he could do it again.
Yeah. My advice to you, Diego, is you can make yourself feel better by doing things like helping his family in certain areas, his friends, things that he enjoyed and loved, or causes that he loved, you carry on in his name. There's things like that you can do. But
all right, thank you very much, Doug. I'm sorry to be so pessimistic about that. That's something that life happens.
No, well, yeah, so it's a good question. But yeah, thanks for coming on. It's like, how do you deal with death as an atheist? That's the bigger question. Caleb, did you have a question to ask?
No, sorry. I saw you all talking politics and religion now, so I just kind of was hopping on to see where the conversation had went. So,
what do you prefer, religion or politics?
I mean, Thanksgiving's fun because those are like my two favorite topics, so I'm good with either. But
what do you? Where do you lean?
I lean more on the conservative side, but I'm not.
Okay,
like a
good. So you're not
Trump
a murderer.
Yeah, that's true. I saw that earlier. Yeah, but I'm not like a diehard Trumper or QAnon or anything like that. So
okay. Do you consider yourself a kind and compassionate person?
Most days.
Why aren't you a Democrat then?
Well, I believe in people being compassionate of their own merit, not of the government forcing people to do that. I know that's a very crude way of putting it.
So here's I'm gonna independently look at the bias in Doug's reporting on these issues, right? So if you were to pick,
yeah, go ahead.
If you were to pick a random school shooter in the US at random and ask what their parents' politics are, do you think it would be Republican or Democrat?
Republican.
I would have said, yeah, probably a white male Republican.
And for all you flag waving phonies out there, all you like Ben, I'm talking to you, Ben from Seattle, Washington, wherever you are. You see how quickly I answered that? Do not be scared to make your team look terrible. Do it.
Yeah.
Okay, back to you, Nathan.
That's I've got to vote Trump.
I think that's actually a good question, though. The parents of shooters. I like that question because I'm not real sure where I would lean on that.
I think the data would suggest it.
What do you mean you're not sure if you would lean?
Like what their political affiliation is, because I think it's just as likely either direction. I could see my guess is that. What's that?
Are you not sure because you like are ignorant of it, or are you just like what makes you unsure?
Because it's a theoretical question about statistical data I don't have. So yeah, I guess I'm ignorant of it. But since we're being asked to guess, I usually will lean one way or the other. So if Doug says a random person does a shooting, is he Republican or Democrat? I'm going to lean Democrat.
Well,
but if you ask me who his parents are, I could see the person being affiliated left-wise, being a young person, but rebelling against their curmudgeon parents that are conservative. I could see it going both ways.
Who's more likely to own a gun, a Republican or a Democrat?
Depends on the state.
Republican.
No, because Vermont, a lot of Democrats own guns. So
that doesn't help because all that does is mean you've got all these Republican gun owners and you have so small amount of crime going on between them. So all that does is push.
Isn't it true? It's more likely Republican.
Well, I think you have to phrased the question: who's more likely to own an assault rifle?
Yeah, it's probably Republican.
Republican.
Although, you know what's funny is whenever a mass shooting happens, well, I shouldn't say funny, but the sales increase for assault rifles because people are scared they're going to get banned. And so I feel like the people who own the gun shops actually would have an incentive to vote Democrat because it would help their sales every time that happens. So I don't know. That's interesting though.
I don't think that's how that works.
Well, in terms of if legislation that threatens to ban an AR-15 helps increase sales of AR-15s because people are scared they have to get their hands on them now before they're banned, then yeah, I think that's how that typically would work.
Yeah, but that like you don't vote. Like people tend not to like vote. Just be like, oh yeah, they're gonna ban guns, so therefore I vote to ban guns because of good time, like because of good money. Like you just put out more propaganda instead. You just advertise, right?
I disagree with that completely. That's the primal motivation. In fact, this will go right to your point, Doug. Or carrots and sticks. Fear is a very good motivator. So this is something Christians,
Are you telling me that a gun shop owner is going to vote Democrat because their Democrats are going to ban guns?
No, was that what was said?
That was what was said. Yeah, that's why I'm like, what are you talking about?
Oh, I thought he said the Democrats would promote gun restriction, and that would actually promote gun sales. I thought that's what.
Yeah, and then because of the promotion of gun sales, because of this constant chain of events, then the gun shop owner was going to vote Democrat so that he would get more sales because of the ban. That's what the whole logic was. And I was like, no, that's not the gun shop owner is not going to do that.
Okay, yeah, no, I agree with you on that. No.
Yeah,
Hey,
I
regular
mean,
guy.
they might like feel like, oh, I get
Hey,
some
how's
more
it going?
finances, but I don't know.
Good. I talked to you before, right?
No? Sometime back the last few weeks, yeah.
Yeah.
It's easy to be confused, Doug. He just looks like a regular guy.
At least I'm not a Democrat. Hey,
What did you want?
Hey.
What did you want to say? I forget.
Well,
wait, hang on. I
can
forget. Are you Christian, Muslim, Jew, Hindu, atheist? What are you? I need a box.
I can't.
I think he's a black Hebrew Israelite.
Yeah. Yep. Oh, I forgot my head covered. Sorry.
You're Christian, right?
We'll go with that for today.
Okay, you're Christian today. Okay, what do you want to talk about?
2022, you can be whatever you want.
Yeah,
oh, you're a trans.
Religion.
I like
Religion
you.
is fluid. But anyways,
I didn't know you were trans. You don't look trans to me.
Oh, anyways, so the correlation that I wanted to point out, you mentioned about the Democratic crime rates in the more urban areas. One thing that I would say to look at is the district attorneys and the county councils are, because that's who would be implementing like crime and prison, reform policy. And one of the reasons, like I say that, is because you look at how much money gets poured into these cities, for instance, that you posted in your video the other day. Many of the district attorneys are progressive. And of course, progressive district attorneys typically lean Democrat. And so then you look at, for instance, some of the policies that they have, like cashless bail. I would say one of the biggest examples of this was more recent with the Darrell Brooks. That gentleman, he actually had committed a crime. I think it was like $1,000, or it was either $1,000 bail, and then he posted it, got out, and then the next day he ran through all those people. So,
Can you get a cashless bail if you've committed murder?
Huh?
If you've been accused of murder, can you get cashless bail?
Many of the cities like New York City will actually have like low bails for people that have committed murder. It's insane.
I don't believe you.
I mean, you look it up yourself. You don't have to believe me.
Okay, if I look it up and you're wrong, what happens?
I'm wrong, and I'll admit that.
Oh, okay. Okay, I just looked it up. You're wrong.
Okay. Where'd you look it up?
Oh, I just looked it up on the internet. Go look it up yourself. Check it out.
Okay, well, I mean, if you got a source.
He's been a little bit dickish. Okay, regular guy. It's just me and you now, and Nathan and Franklin.
It's all good. I handle dicks like that all the time. Yeah, that came out a little wrong, huh? Yeah.
Clip it. Someone clip it.
Yep. Yeah, my wife will love to hear that, huh? Yep.
You're gonna give me a brain aneurysm.
Yeah.
That was funny.
Yeah.
Okay, so summarize your main point with this whole thing.
So are we going back to the religious aspect as well?
Why did you bring up the district attorneys or whatever? Why did you bring that up in the first place?
To highlight the fact of basically, I certainly agree with the premise of your videos, that you posted earlier, and I mean it goes back to the policy issue.
But that's because
I
you're
just,
a racist white guy like I am.
hey, I took my Nazi flag down so nobody could tell. But yeah, I just it's with things like that, it's easy to say policy, and then also too, you look at and a lot of people probably wouldn't like that I say this. They would really call me racist then. But you look at the demographics across the urban areas, and what demographic tends to be in more major urban cities. It would be African American. Right. And you look at the prison system. I mean, 90% of males that are in prison are African American males.
Is it that high?
Yeah, it's astronomically high. And then you look at like FBI crime statistics.
I don't think it's 90%.
I don't think it's 90. Yeah,
I think it might be 50.
You don't think? Okay. 50. Ooh, I don't know.
And 50's high, given that's only 15% of the population.
It is disproportionate, but I don't know if it's
the
majority. It's higher than it should be for the proportion of the population. Yeah.
The last figures that I saw were like 90%. I'd have to look at it again. But
I've got a 38.4 on the Federal Bureau of Prisons that I'm looking at this.
But what percent of the population do they make up? That is
high. Yeah. When I say
it's like 13, I think African Americans make up what 13% of the population.
12% of the population and 38.4 of the.
So
I
think let me guess, regular guy. Your main point here is it's about culture.
Yeah, because a lot of people probably don't know this, but when you look at, for instance, the Civil Rights Act of pre-Civil Rights Act of 1965, you look in the Black community and divorce rate was astronomically low. Families were sticking together is what I'm trying to say. You had nuclear family, mother, father, folks were raising kids and, dads were in the home. And then now you look and, for instance, 80% of children that are aborted are African-American children. I mean, 73% of African-American mothers are unwed. Single mothers. And it just seems it's like the absence of the father figure in the home, the destruction of the nuclear family is causing a lot of this. It's more of basically just do what
you're bringing a hypothesis of what might be causing this murder rate in inner cities, and I think you just said fatherless homes.
And the reason that I bring that up is you mentioned the mass murderers. How many, if you interviewed their parents, how many would, which way would they vote? I would actually ask, out of those mass shooters, how many had fathers in the home?
Yeah.
Can I ask you, actually, maybe you don't want to go in this direction, but I was thinking, I wonder do you also believe that fathers not being in the home is causing like more kids to be like effeminate man or transgender and things like that at the same time?
Typically, just in biologically and culturally, of course, men have always had the traditional, role of masculinity. And so now when you don't have a father figure in the home that displays those traits and sets that standard as, what is a man, then yes, I do believe, there is a correlation between fatherless homes and, effeminate men. Absolutely.
Do you think that that children, like adopted children of like lesbian couples, are more likely to be effeminate or homosexual? Because I don't think that's true statistically, to my knowledge, at least.
I'm not sure of the actual statistics, but I've tried to do my due diligence. Having my own child myself, I really wanted to try to understand as best I could the psychology behind, like the LGBTQ movement and stuff like that.
That's a tough one to answer, Caleb. Like, how do you measure femininity?
Well, you could say like I don't know. I guess, are they more likely to be trans or gay if they're raised by gay parents rather than by a straight couple? I don't think there's a statistical difference from what I'm aware of, but I could be wrong on that.
Yeah, I've never heard of a statistic on that exactly.
I think there could be a tension here, though, because I mean, would you classify violent crime as a traditionally effeminate activity?
No, I'm talking about.
Oh, not you, Caleb. Sorry, I meant
I don't know if there's a correlation with crime. There might be.
I think there's going to be a tension, right, in the theory here, and the tension is going to be, fatherless homes are causing violent crime, but fatherless homes are also causing like people to become more effeminate and so on. I think that there's this tension, right, where there's this thing that maybe a particular political view doesn't like, which is fatherless homes. But I'm not sure that the implications of the theory have really been thought out, because it's like it's both causing people to become more effeminate and caring and not like masculine, but it's also causing them to become like violent.
Another option is it causes young boys to seek the masculine role models elsewhere, which tends to be unhealthy.
Yeah. I think there is a correlation with crime. I don't know if there's a correlation with the femininity. So I think if I had to pick one, I'd say that it's probably more demonstrable that it's with crime rates than it would be with the femininity. So I think that's a good point, though, Nathan, because those do seem to be contrasted. So that's what I would guess.
Go in different directions, but
yeah. So I would probably reject the idea that it makes them more effeminate unless there's good data to back that up, because I don't think there is, to my knowledge. So but it does probably make them more likely to use drugs or commit crimes or what have you. But then the question is, why is this particularly, why would this fatherlessness affect the African-American community more than other communities as well, right? And you said this Civil Rights Act of 1964, like that could be part of it. But is there a further history of, redlining, for example, and housing discrimination and poverty? Because of course, poverty does typically have a direct correlation with crime. So can we push that back to say that policies centuries ago that negatively affected African Americans have kept them, or at least disenfranchised them, to poverty, which then contributed to crime, which also contributed to fatherlessness, and all this kind of goes together.
Hey, welcome, evidence-based pipeline audio. How are you?
Oh, sorry. Hey, sorry, I left my logo on. I'll take that off. I'm just here in case you need backup from a fellow atheist who I don't know that I lean right, but I can at least entertain the ideas of people who have issues that may be right, and not just freak out and get triggered and
I think
be unreasonable about it.
Yeah, I think most of the people who freak out and get triggered, they've already left my channel. So I think we're all friends here now.
I would definitely say the last couple videos that you put out really displayed where people stand as far as, is it just strictly atheism and religion, or is there some other causation, in my opinion?
I think there's a horseshoe, and it's everybody's a neo-Puritan, whether they're on the far left or the far right. They seem to have exactly the same issues with sex and power, and everything seems to be about that. And I have a hard time distinguishing between them.
Actually, a few studies that have been done recently looking at causal explanations for why you have the political polarization that you have going on in the US. And interestingly, it actually seems, because people are on social media, right? It's not that because people are being sorted into groups that are isolated from each other. It's because more and more people are interacting with people on the other side. So it means that more and more issues that ordinarily people wouldn't see as being partisan, right? All of these issues end up being partisan and having some kind of like political slant. And then over time, that leads to people being in more and more like having more and more politically like homogenous opinions that point to one way, the right or the left. And so you have this kind of like sorting thing going on, where people over time are pushed more and more to the right and the left by their engagement with people from the other camp, as it were, on like all of these various issues. And yeah, I don't know what the solution to that actually is. I don't know how you stop that polarization happening in the US. I think it's something like 1 in 5 people in the US in some survey said they thought there would be like a civil war in the next few years or something, right? And that's a pretty worrying statistic.
I don't know why you're saying US. I remember when this first came up, it seemed to be like this really weird divide between North America and Europe.
I mean, in Europe, okay, the European politics is interesting, but I mean, I'm a small c conservative, right? In British politics, the way that Republicans talk about conservatism, it's like crazy to me. Like it's something else, like I'm like a left-wing communist. So,
that's how I feel.
I know people who said that if Bernie Sanders was in like Sweden or one of the other ones, he'd be considered more of a conservative compared to some of the other, or like maybe Brazil, some like really left countries. So yeah, it's definitely a bit more extreme over here. I don't know. Are British politics as polarized as American politics, or is it not?
So part of I don't know if I mean, obviously, the Conservative Party have just been through that recent batch of of different prime ministers, right? And I think part of the issue, part of what nuked our economy actually, was Kwasi Kwarteng taking this kind of extreme libertarian approach to economics in his mini budget and acting as if we were sort of America in the 80s or something, right? With the size of GDP and the dollar to back our economy. So there is a split in the Conservative Party between sort of almost exported like libertarian type issues from the US and more traditional like small c conservatives who, for example, like protecting the green belts is one like issue that small c, or having like strong public institutions like the NHS and stuff, but being like fiscally responsible and things like that are seen as like the kind of conservative values in traditionally in the party. So yeah, I think we've seen more and more. So Boris Johnson, for example, and even Brexit were very much these political issues that took a leaf out of the kind of Trumpist style book, where it became more of like a spectacle for people, and more of this thing that was about these quick catchphrases, a lot of like bullshit involved where the truth didn't really matter, and it's more and that kind of.
So Pipeline Audio, can I ask your first name?
It's Aaron, but nobody knows me by that. I've been on the internet so long. Even if you go to like a NAM show or whatever, they just call me Pipe or something. So it's kind of stuck.
I don't know you. Why don't I know you? Or do I know you?
I just lurk in your channel and hassle you when there's audio issues. That's all.
Oh yes, you're the guy. I wish you were here to figure out why Windows 10 is taking control of my computer. Right now I had to change it. Like it's at 100 and it slowly drops down. It's Whereby. It only happens when I open Whereby, but in other.
The CIA is watching you.
Yeah. Yep.
But
I force everything to not nap through these devices. So.
But how do you have better conversations with people who disagree with you?
Well, like you, I spent a great deal of time in an area where there were Goldwater conservatives. And for you guys that don't know, in places like Arizona, it's often the Republicans who are the absolute rabid environmentalists. Like conservative means conserve the environment at all costs, wildlife diversity, biodiversity. And it's the Democrats who stand against that because they can get more votes by building a lot of houses or whatever else. We lost a significant part of protected land during that housing boom, and it was the Republicans who were up against that, which is weird. You won't see that in other places, I don't think. So,
what I was saying in the UK, but maybe not in other states. But that's what traditionally conservatism has been in the UK as well. It's like look after the countryside, look after the like maintain the diversity of trees and animals and things.
Yeah, and so it's hard for me because I lived a lot of times in small towns in Arizona, and there's a church on every corner, and they're like, "Oh, you must be one of us. You care about the environment." I'm like, "Yeah, but I don't like that church on every corner." And so yeah, it was always a weird thing to try and talk to, and then my fellow supposedly leftist people who really don't care about a lot of things that really hurt poor people. Whereas the Republicans seem to. It's always a weird thing to me. Like I don't know. I just try to talk to people where they stand, and especially I learned in Arizona, all politics is local. It doesn't matter if you're Republican or Democrat. If you're going to get that bridge built over into town, they'll vote for you. They don't care what letters on in front of your name, And I think that's where I've always been able to meet people because I've always worked in the music industry my whole life, and if you get polarized at all, you can lose business very quickly, and you'll never get those bands back or those artists back or whatever. And so we've always had to, they kind of know where I stand, but we've always had to kind of tiptoe and only speak very specifically about stuff, I think.
Yeah, because sometimes I wonder if there's even hope of trying, like, because of how easily people can get their feathers ruffled.
Yeah. Well, you saw it. You posted a video, and otherwise perfectly reasonable people that we have rational conversations with all day long, they went to this crazy no true Scotsman special pleading all the way over to one side in order to just deny facts. And there was a couple times where you're asking, are you really believe that? And I'm like just cracking up because I see the same thing. Around here, I live in Hawaii now. So traditionally here, the anti-vaccine movement has always been the left. It's the hard left. They're the anti-GMO, anti-nuclear, anti-vaccine, anti what they call Western medicine. And during the pandemic, it was the right wingers that started being anti-vax, and it was like this unholy horseshoe union, and now they're both special pleading about stuff. It's crazy. Like, but these used to be rational people, and you saw it with your own video. As soon as you posted that video, it's like people take sides and they lose the ability to reason. And that's why I call it sometimes the religious right and the religious left, because they don't really act any different. They have their heresies.
It boggles my mind that people assume, or that there's a desire that if I speak out against Christianity or Islam, I should be on their team with politics. Like, where does this come from?
That's a good point.
Yeah, that's a lot of that stuff is more societal than religious, anyways.
Yeah.
Why do you think, Doug, that more of your atheist colleagues don't fall in line with your politics? Like, why do you think they tend to lean more left, whereas you don't necessarily see a connection between?
There's many reasons. I can just list the main ones. They're either not married, they don't have kids, they weren't raised in a rural area, they're finding a replacement for their hope, meaning, and purpose in politics, their personality type, you name it. You feel, you give me the answers to those boxes, and I can predict with probably 80% certainty what you are.
I think there's any connection between the kind of values on the conservative right politically and like traditional religious values?
Oh yeah, like that's another thing. Like I get comments from people in my live stream about, oh, you got out of this this religion, conservative religion, but you didn't get out of conservative politics. That means you're still kind of religious, that type of idea. You haven't broke free. If only you saw the light, Doug, you'd break free and you'd be a Democrat. But the thing is, no, people, because of the different metrics I just outlined, will have different values and lean conservative, whether you're religious or not.
Yeah.
Like,
and the other way too.
Yeah, and the way, like Pete, I was just going to say that Pete Enns, he's a very liberal type Christian. I guarantee you, and Randall Rouser, they're not conservatives. I can guarantee it.
Yeah.
So a lot of what makes us lean one way or another is not the religion. It's these other factors, these like real grassroots factors of how you were raised. Are you married? Do you have kids? Do you own your own business? If you've ever owned your own business, boom, right away you lean right. Like if you had to make a bet, because then you actually have to go through the regulations and go through all the paperwork and see with your own eyes what it takes to hire people, how terrible that is, how terrible people are. And to manage and to take care of, and then
and try to fire.
Yeah, and then try to fire. My goodness, it's people should be thankful that anybody hires you.
Right. Well, Doug, I would certainly agree with you on the experience aspect, because I would think one of the situations now here is the Ukrainian situation. I mean, how many billions of dollars have we sent over to a country that we really have no type of interest in, and how many?
I think it's very much in the U.S. geopolitical interest to support Ukraine.
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean,
Americans are scared of Russia.
You have both sides. Oh, go ahead.
I said America's scared of Russia for some reason, but the state of Arizona could take care of Russia on its own. So I don't know what the big deal is.
Well, but I think this is why it makes a lot of sense for the U.S. to send to send money and weapons to Ukraine, right? Is because you basically get to degrade the Russian military capacity without losing any American lives, which is massively what I suppose China now is like a peer militarily, right, with the US, but Russia has historically, and in terms of its nuclear capability as well, always been considered the like military peer, right, with the US, and almost all of US military doctrine has been about there being like a big war, right, between sides that's aligned with Russia and like NATO, basically. And so I think, you've got all of this money that you've historically invested, right, into the US military. You've got, and now you've got a chance to kind of
multiply
do
it,
the thing that to multiply, but without
spending another dime, you can multiply the effectiveness of that money. Yeah.
Is that any U.S. lives good or not, though? I think is it a good historical investment, or is it something that we should not have done to begin with? I mean, like
that's another story.
Yeah, with the
Yeah, I think at the time it made sense. I mean, I think you can say in the 90s and 2000s, right, when it wasn't quite clear where Russia was going, that it might have been bad at that time. And I think, and you can say people like George Bush, for example, like really pushing to have Ukraine in NATO, and so you can say like these were bad decisions that the US made. But I certainly think that throughout the like after World War II, for example, right, who knew what like Stalin was going to do, and the US was in, like, you know, the big kind of kid on the block militarily to deal with that.
Yeah, I just feel like U.S. interventionism has a very spotty record in terms of consistency. I mean, you get some examples like Korea and Panama, but then you get Vietnam or Syria or any number of other ones. So
I think China's the scary one because the US has set up its island chain so close to China in the first place.
Right.
But then also this stuff about the semiconductors and stopping trade with China. Basically, that means that China can't like economically integrate with the US as a result of that
just noticed
decision.
something, Nathan. Hang on a second.
Yeah.
You said China and then China. Is there
China?
There's one spot though. You said you put an R in, but then you didn't.
China.
Is it because of the
China.
word that comes after it? Does that influence?
China is. Maybe if I said like China is, if there's like a vowel after it or something, maybe.
Yeah. So if
Wait,
it's,
that sounds like some of my kinfolks where I live. They'll say, "Hey, it's in the China cabinet." I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
you say China is. Say that sentence again, Nathan. China
So like
is.
like China is like maybe there's a bit of an R on the end. Like
Yeah, I think that's it.
I asked you to, but I think when you said it quickly, it sounded like China is.
Yeah.
I think it'd be hilarious if Nathan talked like regular guy and regular guy talked like Nathan.
Hello, mate.
What's your best?
Yeah, of course.
Hey,
Feel free
Nathan,
to
let
give
me
it a go.
ask: Do you still live in the UK?
Scotland currently. The
Scotland. Okay.
Yeah.
What do you know about the Great Replacement theory? Have you ever looked into that? Because I know with Scotland, you have a lot of immigrants coming in, right?
Oh no.
Yeah, I mean, I'm aware of the Great Replacement theory. I mean, I consider it to be a conspiracy theory. So I don't think it's. I don't think it's something. That's
For those who don't know, what Nathan, in one sentence or two, what's the Great Replacement theory?
So basically, it's to do with the replacement of certain races by other people from less favorable races, and this is like
You didn't have to put a less favorable on it.
Well,
Let's
yeah,
just,
and it really
non-white.
doesn't have anything to do with race. It's to more or less break a country down into, like, for instance, America. You know, to give us, like, look at the open border. I mean, you can't really deny how many people are coming up through the border. And I understand there's terrible situations. It's not anything about that. But look at how much power and influence America has throughout the world. And then to basically make America a third world country to where,
how does
draconian measures could be implemented.
Country, though, regular guy.
How
does that make it a? Because look, I mean, I'm conservative leaning as well, but I also libertarian leaning to the sense where I'm very much pro immigration. I'm pro free market. So
yeah, sure, absolutely.
So
I'm for it the right way.
You're for what?
I'm for immigration, legally.
I think everyone's for it legally.
Or fairly.
Yeah, but I think it's just the idea of how long the waiting list is and how difficult it is.
For some people.
Well, for a large amount of people, for millions of people.
No. We treat potential immigrants very differently depending on where they come from.
Sure, yeah, I don't deny that, but I think the point he was asking about the Great Replacement theory, though, is like what exactly? I know you probably mean the voting demographic is what they're replacing, but like in terms of
that's part of it.
Do you think that their politics are radically different? Because actually, Latinos are starting to vote. Well,
yeah,
depending on the demographic, quite a few of them are actually voting conservative now. They're especially like Florida and if they're Cuban. So I mean, it depends on the type.
Yeah, resident Latinos tend to be conservative.
Yeah.
Immigrant Latinos tend not to be, actually.
Right?
A lot of them are Catholics too, and they're very pro-life and so forth. So, I mean,
Catholics are traditionally Democrats, though, until very recently.
Yeah, which is ironic given the social policies. It's kind of an interesting way how that goes.
But if you guys want to see what it looks like, I'm in Hawaii right now. I was born here. Now I'm back.
Did DJ Penn run for senator there, by the way?
Oh yeah. And so exactly, so that's your point.
Are you
so
doing?
if you want to see
so there you go.
What the Great Replacement theory looks like, look at the politics in Hawaii. Look at where the IQ is right now. Look at where the Hawaiians are, who almost don't exist now, and look at the third world slum that this place is. Even with all the tourist money that comes into here, it's just go out on the street and look at all the people who with the 2 jobs living in their cars while houses sit empty, and homeless are all over the street from all over the country and all over the world. And you're looking at what could happen, but doesn't have to happen.
How is that
Because-
correlated with the replacement, though? I guess I'm not
Well, I
following.
mean, for one thing, Hawaii has to take on. I don't know why we have to take it on, but we have to take on all of the Micronesians who, because America bombed the hell out of their stuff. They
Right.
don't got a place to. Well, it's not true that they don't have a place to live, but some of them don't want to live
If
in
you
some
enjoy
of the islands
cancer.
they have. Yeah. Well, no, I mean, that's they don't live in those islands though. But all of them have now been given the citizenship here, and we thought that it meant that they were going to sprinkle them across the entire country, and somebody could help absorb the economic impact, because it is a insane drain on the economy here.
But isn't that the issue, though, in terms of if you can get these people working and where they're contributing, paying taxes, and that wouldn't that be a benefit? Because I believe most.
Oh, yeah. If
It's
there were
one of the
jobs.
main reasons. One of the
It's the welfare
contributing.
state that's the problem, not the
Yeah,
immigrant.
that is.
I agree that if you have free benefits constantly, that's going to be bad. If you have a lot of people coming in, but if they're working and contributing to the economy, then I don't see why that's an issue.
Well-
I guess it's not happening there. But.
Do you think?
But you got to remember, this is a country with an 85 IQ, so there's only so much types of jobs that they can have, and there's really not that many labor jobs available in Hawaii in the first place.
Right.
Yeah, like Caleb, what you said, like it's not a no-brainer. I know a lot of people think it is, but it's very complicated. But in the short term, depending on your skill set, most immigration is a net negative to the economy in the short term.
Well, yeah, well, that's because it's a lot of it's lower training,
Right.
low skilled jobs. It's not people who have higher educations. These people who are doing it. But that's also why that's actually why the minimum wage, at least in certain countries, was originally implemented, is because they didn't want to have to hire immigrants. It was so that they could make, to put it frankly, make white people more competitive. And so I know nowadays that has a different connotation, but that's typically how it was seen. But I'm all for open borders in terms of markets, as long as it's being done legally and
Well,
stuff
now
like
we
that.
got something to disagree about. I'm for closed borders.
Are you?
Yep.
Well, that's consistent with that. But I mean, I feel like if you're going to be free market and say that businesses should be able to hire who they want without government intervention, generally speaking. Now, of course, not doing child labor, but
And the reason for that is to run experiments. You can't run economic experiments with open border. It's harder. If you can actually have countries where you close everything down, you can actually run experiments and control for certain things.
Well, we have closed the borders down. Plenty. You can do the
Hey,
Chinese.
didn't we do that with North Korea?
Yeah, plenty of times in American history we've closed down borders. I mean, the Chinese
I know.
exclusion act to lots of places.
And technically, the United States has closed border laws, right? Technically.
Yeah, of course.
Technically.
Yeah.
Very, very loose.
Practically, not so much, but.
But all I'm saying is that it does produce cheaper goods, at least for certain industries. Now, you're right; it does put some people out of business because there's competition. But that's how the market works when there's competition. That means there's.
But if
ideally, this flow both ways, right? It doesn't always.
But I'm curious where you stand, Caleb. So if your only goal was to maximize the economic productivity, GDP, do you think? And you have two choices. You can only import PhDs, engineers, chemists, all this stuff, or low skilled labor, but not both. Which one would you import?
If you could only import that?
Yeah.
It depends on what industries the country has.
See, this is not it's a no-brainer answer, isn't it not?
I thought you said there wasn't a no-brainer.
Caleb,
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Caleb's actually right, because it could be the case, right, that you have a bunch of these these lefty PhDs who are all lazy and just want to sit around doing academic stuff, right? And you have all these blue collar.
The engineers are not lefties.
Yeah, but they're also getting paid a lot more too, Doug. I mean, I know lower wages isn't good for the people getting them, but it's good for people buying the goods.
You know what I'm getting at? I'm getting at, so you got employee low skill set. That's option one. Option two is higher skill set, entrepreneurs even. And your goal is to maximize the financial condition of your country.
I would take the PhDs, and then once they start their own businesses, industries, they would then hire lower level employees.
Yeah,
So
okay.
but it's not. But I think Nathan and I might agree on this, but yeah, I think it's just, economies are complicated, which is why we have both a combination of low skill and high skill labor. So,
but the thing is, like, and this is, I think, one difference between people who lean left and right is a person who leans left, because of that compassion inside them, will say, but that's not fair. And it is good for the country because they're paying their taxes, their sales taxes and stuff. But if you actually run the numbers and the math, a person who comes in the country and makes $40,000 a year and has 4 kids is a net drag financially to the economy.
Yeah, but it's weird though, because I think it's more consistent with the conservative side, because it's saying, because typically conservatives are, oh, you're heartless, you just care about money and your corporations. I feel like corporations want to, like, yeah, I'll hire someone I can pay 50 cents an hour versus all these union benefits. So I think it would make more sense for the conservatives to be supporting lower labor immigrants rather than trying to get all these, white collar jobs. So it just seems strange to me that people who are so free market
Well, see, I think lower level jobs, you get solve two problems with one stone. Lower level jobs should be done by kids, not adults.
Well, what do you mean, like teenagers, like their first job?
Get them
children down the mines.
You don't mean 6-year-olds in sweatshops?
No. I'm not talking about like. I'm talking about like 16 to 18 to 20
I
kids.
agree with that,
Should they learn responsibility and learn how to actually get up and get to work on time instead of checking their Twitter and texts and
TikTok? Yeah.
It's a good thing most kids didn't grow up where I did. At 5 years old, I was up at 5 o'clock. Dad said, "Get up, boy, time to go to work." And it was
when I was on the farm. My dad used, when you spray crops with these big spray airplanes. My dad had one of those.
Oh,
my
wow.
dad used me as the guider for the pilot, spraying chemicals.
Wow.
Now, of course, they turn it off just before they hit me, but still, like, I'm in no hazmat suits or anything. I mean, this is how we were raised on the farm. It's like, toughen up, kid.
How do you feel about farm subsidies, Doug, since you grew up on a
Against
farm? I am too.
Absolutely.
So one thing you can look at in terms of the arguments around immigration, right, is how the UK's policies have changed post-Brexit and leaving free area of travel within the EU as well. And it's had very big negative consequences on our economy. Now, you can argue that that's because higher skilled workers don't want to work in the UK as well. But actually, there's a shortage of like nurses and like what would be considered, well, I mean, it's still skilled work, right? I'm not saying, but what would be considered like low skilled? It's not like having a PhD and stuff. There's shortages for lots of these things because people don't want to come in and work in the NHS and then not be given citizenship or not be able to settle down and have a family and stuff like that. This has really negatively affected our economy in a way that other European economies haven't been affected, who have remained a part of that free area of travel. And also same with migrants from Ukraine and Africa and stuff. The UK has taken on board like the lowest numbers of refugees from these areas of any of the European countries. And again, like these people are contributing to society. Often, a lot of them are skilled as well, engineers and dentists and things like that. So.
Hey, Mike. Actually, you're from Hawaii Pipeline Audio, and you kind of look like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson.
I was going to say that.
He's like 30 miles away from me right now, I think.
Oh, shooting a
he's
movie?
more in Kahuku area.
Congratulations on the income for your movie, Black Adam.
Yeah. So what's up, Mike? How are you doing? I can't hear you though.
Uh-oh.
Oh.
Is he talking?
I saw his lips move.
Oh.
You can put up your thumb if you can hear us, Mike. Yeah, okay. So just check your audio levels, gear top right. You might have to refresh and come back in.
Hey, Doug, while I got you here, I think you've made an allusion to it before, but it seems like people always conflate immigration with illegal immigration, and they use the same. It's like they do this context switch and bait and switch on you when they're talking about things. I think you talked about this before. Like I've never met a Republican until very recently who was against immigration. I've only ever met ones that are against illegals, or whatever. Like they wouldn't expect to cross into somebody else's house uninvited either.
Yeah, that's a good
I always see
point.
the media conflating that, and it drives me nuts. And in Arizona, our resident Hispanics hate to be lumped in with the illegals, right? They're always like,
Yes.
"Hey, stop calling us criminals. You media people are calling us
Yeah.
criminals over and over, and blaming us for this and that, and
Oh yeah, the
putting us in
Hispanics
with
in
these other
Tucson and
guys."
Phoenix, they do not
Yeah.
like the people who come in illegally, and they
Oh,
did
yeah.
it the right way.
They worked hard to get here. Yeah,
And don't
they-
feel sorry
Or-
for
or
them
they
just
were
because
born
they're
here since
poor.
forever.
Like
Yeah.
this is the Hispanic attitude. It's like we were poor too, and we did it the right way. So stop this. Oh, feel sorry for us. Anyhow, hi Mike. Got it working yet?
No.
Uh-oh. He took out regular guy.
Or I think his regular guy's still here, isn't he? The screen's black. Oh, there he is.
Oh, he says he's trying to rejoin.
Oh, did Nathan leave? I guess.
Yeah.
Oh.
I think Mike's going to give me the gears, but we'll see.
Regular guy, are you a Christian as well? Or are you? I know you're fairly conservative, but see.
Uh-oh.
Oh,
he croaked again.
Oh, I guess that's a. He didn't want to answer the question. Yeah.
Hey, Doug, I always, you're always asking these guys questions about stuff. I always wanted to hear it. If you believe in eternal conscious torment, wouldn't you be the worst kind of monster, like Hitler to the exponential infinity, by having a kid? If you believed in eternal conscious torment, there's a chance that kid that you have would be tortured eternally. So if Christians really believe what they say they believe, in case they do believe in eternal conscious torment, wouldn't that be the most evil possible act
can you guys hear
that
me
any
now?
human could ever commit?
Yes, Mike, we can hear you. And yes, Pipeline Audio, like I don't understand why Christians would ever consider having kids that believe in ECT. But some of them are Calvinists, and they believe that because they're saved, their kids are automatically saved. But how can you know that? And
how does that work?
Yeah.
It's what do they call it? It's sort of like some type of sovereign grace type idea. But Mike, you're here to give me the gears.
Sure. I emailed you a couple weeks ago, basically saying about the same stuff that you were talking about in terms of, people agreeing with you on religion, but not so much on politics. I missed most of the stream, so I'm not sure what you guys have talked about today.
We talked about, the main thing was on the politics front. It was the couple videos I made where I showed the top 10 cities in the United States by murder rate. And then I just, on the bottom in blue letters, I put, oh, and by the way, 65% voted for Biden. Oh, by the way, 70% voted for Biden. I just went down the list like that. Made no claims, just took two random facts and put them together. And it understandably caused some people to be triggered. Well, maybe not understandably, but...
Isn't that just kind of like a consequence of being in cities, though? Cities tend to vote Democratic, and pitting more people close together, and there's going to be more poverty. There's going to be more clashes and more, issues in general.
Like Japan,
not all cities are
like Taiwan.
Not all cities vote.
Like Hong Kong.
Like it depends on how big a city you're going for. But I agree with you. In the United States, the top 50 biggest cities, I think out of the top 50, 47 voted for Biden in 2020. But once you get to smaller cities, like Arlington, Texas, or something like that, then no, of course it's way different.
But I'm sure that it's like if somewhere like, I don't know, I'm just pulling a random example, but like Burlington, Vermont or something, I'm not sure how big of a city that is, but I'm sure like they probably have a pretty low murder rate, I would guess, and they're extremely liberal.
Yeah. Oh yeah. When you look at some of the safest cities, or least likely to be murdered in the United States, it's a mixed bag. But yeah, you'll definitely find liberal cities in there. But the opposite's not true. All the worst murderous cities in the United States vote blue.
Sure. Well, do you think that's because of like Democratic policies, or like obviously you're drawing a connection?
Why do I think that is? Well, there's many reasons. I think one of them is people can say, well, they're trying to stop the murders. And who do they think will stop the murders better? The Democrats, because of gun laws or whatever. So that's one possible answer. Another possible answer is, well, there's a correlation between crime and poverty, and they think, oh, Democrats will help us get out of poverty. So that's another possible solution.
Mhm. So I guess it seems to me like there's too many, like it feels like you're drawing with like making that video or making that statement or whatever, you're drawing like a specific correlation, but I feel like there's too many variables.
I actually wasn't, and I know you came in late, but one of the first things I said why I made that video is to get some Democrats off their high horses, that to get the moral high ground in society.
Sure. Yeah, I love how everybody's assigning these motivations to you before they even find out.
Yeah.
Like this, you missed most of the stream, so it's a mic. But we just watched people just assume all this crazy stuff, and like, I'm not quite straw man him, but like they had this whole narrative written out about what Doug did.
What better way to make people feel bad about their own party is to realize that in areas where their party votes blue, in those areas is the highest crime, murder to be more specific, and that's something to feel bad about. So sure. I just want you to feel bad.
We're the outlier here, though. We're a third world cesspool that has always been the left hook of the Bible Belt, but always votes Democrat. We have very few guns and very few murders. We have a lot of crime. It's horrific kind of crimes, but quality of life crimes, but not much murders.
Is this Hawaii or Arizona?
Hawaii.
Hawaii.
Well, yeah, sorry for jumping to conclusions. I feel like, I guess maybe it's the polarized political climate where it's people do that kind of like vague posting all the time where they're like, oh, I'm just saying things. And
well, no, I'm purposely doing that in that video because I want people to practice to not get upset. Just see it and then say, oh, okay, I'm wondering. And I said this earlier, there was many people, or at least 3 or 4 that I saw who said, oh, Doug, they were like you, Mike. They said, well what are you trying to say here? Like, what's the point? And very calm and civil. And others saying, yeah, whatever Doug says is like, his politics is trash, is garbage, man. It's like, if you're that type of person who, bye-bye. Like, I'm doing this for fun, for my own entertainment. I don't need you. I'm not doing this for you.
This is what happened to the Bible Geek too, right? I mean, this is Bible Geek Mark too, right here, Doug, that you're going to. But I think he took it a lot harder. But it was the same kind of thing. He, Robert Price.
Bob Price. Oh yeah, sorry, I forgot that.
The Robert Price thing. I got so many atheists mad because you represent us. You're an atheist. I'm an atheist. You are on our team. You have to do these things. You have to push back hard against these Republicans. I mean, this thing has to stop.
This is why there are really bad Christians who treat atheism like it's a religion. Because I mean, atheism, they act like there's dogmas that you have to follow.
Yeah, exactly. Heresies, dogmas.
Atheists fall into that trap where you have to think like us, and it's not just not believing in God. You have to vote like we do and agree with us on like other issues, and that's just where it's like, no, that's not good.
Well, look at what's become the pretty much. I know McCrae calls them a cult. I'm not inclined to disagree at this point. But what's become of the atheist commercials of Austin, where they really have a monoculture in there, and if you disagree with that dogma, it becomes that inward firing squad when the when you take power and you run out of enemies and you start shooting into your own circles to get because you ran out of enemies, and you're watching that stuff, and there is such a strict verboten words and verboten thoughts, and the diversity of thought is just absolutely gone. It's crazy. It's like you left, like you were saying, you don't leave religion, you just swap religions. You may not have a supernatural God anymore, but
I want to address something in the live stream chat. My mod Oak River, my cousin to PineCreek. Doug, 8 out of 10 highest murder rates voted Republican in 2020. But then Oak River realized, but how? Surely Doug knows this, and of course Doug does know this. But why? But then Oak River caught himself. So, 8 out of 10 states actually voted Republican, but they're the highest murderous states. But then when you dig deeper into those states,
it's the cities that are the outliers.
High populated cities that vote blue. So if this is going to really upset, so this is how you practice not being triggered. These red states would be far less murderous if the Democrats got out.
Oh, you're really going to make them hate you.
But
now.
what I just said is factually correct. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. This is like your outsider test for faith, but for politics.
Yeah, this is a way. Like, if you're a Democrat, I'm encouraging you to actually listen to my words and not and just soak it in and say, you know what, Doug is probably right here.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, practically though, what does that mean? Like,
yeah, it's just for fun. It's just to practice.
Yeah, what are we going to do about it? You know, exactly.
You're just trying to say that you can admit that your party makes mistakes. You don't have to defend everything just because you have a D or an R next to your name. And so if it was the other way around and it was Republicans, Democrats would jump on that. At this point, I'm imagining Doug is getting at, like, Democrats would jump on that and be like, oh, yeah, look, Republicans are so dangerous, all their guns or whatever it is. But when it's on the other foot, it's like, oh, now they get upset. So just having criteria that we can establish so that we're not special pleading for our side, where we can admit, when our side's right and when our side's wrong. So
sure.
Yeah.
I think like no political party or no society is ever going to be like free of flaws, and just human clashes are always going to exist on some degree. So yeah, I don't think I guess I don't think that like crime being high in Democrat cities is necessarily like a correlation that that means a lot, just because like I mentioned before, the populations just is going to lead to that, and poverty is going to lead to that.
So.
Well, in fairness, we said earlier before you were on the stream that, like, if you looked, we could say that look at like mass shooters or school shooters. Most of them are probably Republican people who are AR-15s. Is there a correlation there? I don't. Yeah. I mean, besides only the gun, probably not.
The purpose of this is just to get people to start admitting and saying out loud stuff that's negative about their own team.
You don't have to agree with it, but if you can just, what was that Spartanizer guy's podcast back in the day? He used to even say that, like, if you don't have to agree with the position, just be able to understand that it's a point of view, even if it's not a valid point of view. At least understand that that's somebody's point of view, and you've just been elevated in your ability to actually have a conversation with that person.
I mean, I'll say as someone who leans Republican that Republicans are way more likely to believe conspiracy theories, and I don't like that. So that'll be a knock I'll give to
well, unless it has to do with food or medicine. Well, actually, no, I'll take that back, because nowadays the Republicans are just as bad. But over here, man, it is so hard to get sensible food policy into Hawaii, because the left fights very hard to keep sensible food out of our.
I know, and GMOs are, I think, pretty consensus wide to agree to be safe, and that's
GMOs saved our mangoes, saved our papayas, and all of Hawaiian's traditional food were GMOs. If you look at it, you can't eat wild taro.
I don't buy food unless it's GMO. I don't trust nature.
Yeah, there you go. And then Democrats are so concerned with helping the poor and feeding the hungry. It's like, yeah, but GMOs will help you do that. You want to try to feed the hungry without GMOs? Good luck with that.
Yeah, I live in a very like liberal college town, and we definitely have that aspect of like the far left who's like suspicious
they
of
very
everything.
much like pro like alternative medicine and stuff. Like
that's a problem here too. It's wiping out our public health care system. And
I figure like the hippies in California would not trust like big pharma and stuff. They do their own homeopathy or whatever it is they do to make themselves feel better. Their chakras, it's hyper left, but that's not the majority of them. But then again, Republicans, a lot of them don't like vaccines, so it's annoying either way.
Anyhow, guys, I want to wrap things up. Mike, since you just came on, and do you have anything else you want to say, or last word or anything?
No, not particularly. Maybe I'll try some other time and have a longer conversation.
What state are you in?
New York.
New York. Okay.
Oh, wow.
That's bluer than blue.
Yeah, you got a thing that looks like a house, though. That looks.
Yeah,
I'm guessing not the state. Maybe the state, but yeah.
Well, that means you got some money, Mike. You got some money.
Mostly inherited, honestly.
Oh, are you a trust fund kid?
No, not at all. But my wife's parents like owned a lot of property around here and like out in Colorado, so they had a fair amount of money, and they had 2 houses, and so we inherited one of them basically.
Okay. So how do you stay humble with like I try to being successful with lots of money? How do you do it? Like,
well, day to day, we're not very wealthy or anything. So
I hear you. That's like I drive a 1998 Lexus LX 400, LS 400. And my friend Reed laughed at me. Will you drive that old car? But it has air suspension. It's smooth, and it's worth like $4,000, $3,000. I mean, I love it. Like you got to live under your means.
I mean, that car's older than me, but you know, it's so good that it lasts that
Yeah,
long.
it's older than my kids. They always laugh.
Yeah.
Anyhow, take care, guys.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
But,
Thanks for letting me on.
No problem.
Appreciate it.
So if you came late, talked about Ravi Zacharias, Mike Licona, and then mostly politics. And I realize most of you don't like politics, which is good. I appreciate you for that. Who's Rappaport? GMOs are okay, but vaccines aren't. Double standards, Doug. Huh? Huh? I've never had dizziness from eating GMO food. Have you? I drive a Mini Cooper. Man, can you imagine getting hit by a real truck, a manly man truck, Doug Dean, like a SUV, a Tahoe or something? You wouldn't stand a chance. PineCreek, that was one of the best live streams in a while. Good to see an atheist with some balls. Bill, are you asking to see my balls? Low on dopamine. Watch my life get canceled for appearing on the evil conservative show. Oh no, Pipeline, you won't get canceled. Well, who knows? I mean, does it really matter? You seem like you're self-employed, so it doesn't matter. Doug and I probably agree on a lot of economic issues. Well, Brian, you just gotta face facts. Top 10 murderous cities in the United States, vote blue. You just gotta say, yes, you're right, Doug. Then what else do you want to talk about? You know, a Democrat who would just admit that right away and say, yeah, that's true. I wouldn't push back. I wouldn't go down any further. Just, okay, let's play some poker. I can't tell if he likes or dislikes me anymore. Well, you're a nice guy, Brian. We will show you the light eventually, says Sasha. See, this is the bad attitude. This is a really bad attitude. It's comments like that that makes me want to do another video to trigger people. Because it's this, and maybe you're joking and being sarcastic, and if so, good job. But it's comments like that that makes me want to say, oh, you realize taxes in, taxes out, income taxes in, income taxes out. Democrats suck more than Republicans. It's bimodal, but I think that's true. The top blue cities probably have the best universities. That could be true. More videos, make them. In caps? You're demanding stuff of me? Let me start the music here. I won't leave. I'll answer questions for a while because I've been kind of ignoring you guys. I'll ignore Doug Dean because he's already been on. If you aren't prepped for Doug to taunt you at this point, you're unprepared. Yeah, Jerome, you should expect it. And then when it happens, you're not surprised. Oh yes, Remembrance Day. Good point, Jeff. Remember the ones who died for your right to be offended. Can we talk about less controversial topics like making fun of Jesus? That's too easy. I thought you bought a small SUV to replace the Lexus truck. Nope. I bought oh yeah, sorry. It's not a Lexus though. I have two vehicles. I bought a Nissan Rogue. It's half the price of a Lexus. And it wasn't new. It was 2 years old. Nice haircut. Thank you. I did myself. If you have this little hair and you go to a barber, you're not a Mennonite. Mennonites cut their own hair when it's this few. I agree, Brian. Thank you for saying that. What don't I like about my side? Many things. The whole storming the Capitol was terrible. The whole not being sensitive to other people, I get it. There's a balance. Like when I say I lean right, I lean right. That doesn't mean I'm against public schools and public health and all that sort of thing. I just think it's maybe better to be private and still have the public stuff. Like, think about it this way. If someone can afford a really good steak and someone can't, they can only afford McDonald's, should you prevent the person who can afford a really good steak from eating a really good steak? Like with food, it's pretty easy, right? Oh yeah, sure. If you can afford to eat a really expensive steak, go for it. Now apply that to healthcare. If someone can afford the best healthcare money can buy and others can't, do you really want to deprive that person of the ability to use that doctor? Or is your fairness gauge so that's not fair, so you can't do anything I can't do? That's what I disagree with. I think if you can afford to have a good steak, have a good steak. If you can afford to have a good doctor, have a good doctor. Even if it's better than your doctor and your steak is better than the other steak. I've done, well, you know what? No, I don't want to do a poll on that, Franklin. But I've had many people tell me a little bit of hair on me looks better than going bald. Or completely bald. All people deserve love and respect until they don't. I would say the opposite. I mean, you got to earn the love and respect. The default is just neutral. You don't hate them, you're not rude to them, but you don't love them and give them respect either. They're neutral. To me, that's the default. So people have to earn love. They have to earn respect. They have to earn their dignity. I don't believe in this, we're all created in the image of God, so we all have this inherent worth. I don't buy that. Sorry, I don't. Poof. Maybe next time I'll have everybody can talk instead of subscribers only. A lot of people just didn't want to watch and they ran away and said, I'm sad because if I can't type, then I'm not going to be here. But anyhow, take care, guys.